because it's funny because there's the guys that never partied, and I feel like their career never really took off. Because to be honest, like obviously the wakeboarding world is such a bro sport, right? So it's like if you don't party with me, then you're not gonna get sponsored by me.
I approve waterboarding. They're talking about wakeboarding. The thing about wakeboarding, every trick is an invert.
Backside.
Side air railing.
A new dimension.
All right, we are back. Another episode of the Grab Matters podcast. Today we welcome on a very special guest, Patrick Wieland. How's it going?
It's going good. Back in Orlando, it's kind of funny driving around Windermere.
Yeah.
Because, growing up in here and kind of living here for so long, you remember like different houses. Like, oh, so-and-so lived there. And we had a rail on that lake. And, it's like you have these little moments where you kind of forget about it. But when you drive through it, you're like, oh,
yeah,
I remember that. That's where someone hit a double up, first ever, double flip or stuff like that.
The good old days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you doing back in Florida? Because I know you were in Florida, you traveled, and then you came back. So what's the deal there?
So basically, I went to Hawaii to just like during COVID and like that whole time period just to go surfing, and thought I would live in Hawaii for a while. And then I basically decided to come back to Florida. Came back to Florida. Now I'm down in South Florida. And Florida's always going to be home, I guess. I'm actually going to Hawaii next week for like 2 months to go fishing. So
okay, I
kind of try to be free and just bounce around. That's the great thing about, I guess, being a YouTuber, influencer, content. I don't know. It's like people always ask me, "What's your job?" I'm like, I don't know. I just make content, man.
Yeah,
I'm a marketing person. That's the best thing I tell people. I'm in marketing.
There you go. That's a great buzzword.
Yeah, because people it is like, how do you make money on YouTube? I'm like, I just market, man. I just making some markets.
500,000 subs.
Yeah,
that's how you make some money on YouTube. All right, so before we kind of get into the early days of Patrick Wieland, we got to hit you with favorite grab, and I think we can do one you like to do or did like to do, and then one you like to film or see.
To be honest, I never was that good at grabbing. I'm just not very flexible.
Yeah, that's fair.
So for me, I think the method, a good method grab is
it's a classic.
It's a classic. It's a good one. You do a nice method, but you gotta it's gotta be tweaked out.
Yeah.
You can't it can't be half-assed. Like, I'm trying to think about who has some really good methods, but like it's gotta get it. I mean,
you gotta kick that
Sean
back
Watson, just classic style.
Yeah.
I think it's like, and that's one thing too, is like there's people out there who I guess they don't have style, right? There's some people that just like, no matter what they do, no matter what grab they do, you're like, ugh. Even though they grabbed in the right spot, you're like, ugh. There's something about
it. Stiff,
Yeah, but then you watch like Sean Watson, and you're like, oh, that's beautiful.
Smooth.
It's kind of sexy,
Yeah.
And
all right.
It's off the water. He has it off the water. It's like the swag.
Okay, method. That's easy answer. Second question: what is the most you've made on a single trade?
Most I made on a single trade.
Yes.
Just the other day, I made about 70,000 overnight. One trade. That would have been like literally just a week ago. It's on the YouTube. That was the best. Just woke up and I was up 70,000.
All right, we got to counter it. We got to counter it. Most you've lost on a single trade.
Most have lost? Yeah, no. I mean, it's always
winners
on
and
a single
losers.
trade, probably like 50.
Okay.
On like a single trade. I mean, I'm obviously like I've lost more money and like investing in different crap, but like in a single trade, probably like 50.
Okay.
So like right there, right? It's right in line. I kind of trade with like that 1-to-1 risk to reward anyway. So if I make 20, I might lose 20 the next day. So it's up and down. I tell people like, it ain't easy.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to get into trading. I'm like, don't do it. That's my advice. I'm like, don't do it.
We'll talk about trading in a little bit too, because I got some questions on that. But before we get into some of that stuff, let's talk early days, because you're from Florida.
Yeah.
So kind of just paint a picture of the early days of Patrick Wieland.
I mean, I think the funniest part about my whole story is the fact that I basically got famous. I don't know if I'll say famous, but I created a name for myself by basically being like an internet troll, right? So I don't know if you know, but like basically there was a website called wakeskating.com.
Yep.
Back in the day. And that's where everything happened. When like wakeskating.com was like in the infancy, like people would do a new trick and it would get posted to wakeskating.com and it would be like probably like 360p, all staticky.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
was
pixelated.
that a triple shove? Did he do a triple shove? Like, was that a 360? Like what did he big backspin? Just like all this stuff. And that was like, Thomas Harrell, like all those like the innovators of wake skating were basically on that forum.
Yeah.
Nick Taylor, before he was really anybody, he was on there active, and he was just a kid. And we'd go on there and we'd just talk about wake skating. And it was like, build a little flat bar. I remember one time I built a flat bar with like two step ladders, and it was probably like 8 feet long, but it was sick. You get a little ollie up on your wake skate and 2 feet, and you're like, I did it.
So you're into wake skating?
Yeah, I mean, I
wakeboarding.
was big into wake skating long before wakeboarding. And it's funny because, I don't know, people like that forget about that. But yeah, basically I went on wakeskating.com. Their Alliance had a wakeskating magazine for a little bit. Brooke Geary basically ran Alliance Wakeskating mag. There was like a couple of issues of print, but mostly it stayed online. There was some articles in the magazines. Alliance was always kind of the bigger supporter of wakeskating than Wakeboarding Magazine, just because obviously Wakeboarding Magazine was like more tied to the boats, where Alliance was more like a little bit more grassroots in the beginning, I feel like, and then later on kind of ended up where Wakeboarding Mag is. But yeah, so basically I went on wakeskating.com, was always active on there, always kind of like, I don't know, just in the discussion. And then I would make fun of Alliance because, like, man, their videos are terrible. Like, who makes the videos at Alliance? Like, they're terrible.
So go on. Like, what do you mean? Like, what videos? What was so bad about
I mean, they would just, they'd make videos, wake skating videos, or they'd make wakeboarding videos. And it was just, they were bad. Like, I don't know. Maybe they weren't bad. Maybe I just said they were bad just to, like, to get attention,
Stir the pot,
Yeah. And finally, Brooke Geary, she emailed me. She's like, hey, if you're going to talk crap, like, come and show us that you can do it better.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And the best part was, like, I wasn't a filmer. Right, like I really wasn't. Like at the time, like I was just a kid.
Yeah.
So I went and bought like this little handy cam. Like it was like like this big, and I would go out and film wake skating, and then I'd start making videos, and they would put them on Alliance Wakeboarding magazine or on Alliance Wake Skate, and it was hilarious because the videos were terrible. Like they were so bad. Like the editing was terrible. It was all bad. Yeah. But I was like, oh, like this is cool, right? I'm starting to film. I would film like Ryan Lemons back in the day. I mean, just like all the OG, Andrew Pastura, just all those guys back in the day, wake skating. And Andrew Pastura was at the time when I was filming him, like nobody knew who he was. He wasn't sponsored by Nike. This is back in the day. Because he would go to OWC. Andrew Pastura, no one knows that, but like he would go to OWC and just do laps, like for hours and hours. And like obviously he wasn't like bragging that he was like good at the cable, but like I always tell people like going to the cable, like you're never gonna get that much time on the water.
Yep.
So cable park, like people who ride the cable park, they have insane, board control and just like all that. So yeah, the wake skate in the world kind of blew up, and then I got started working for Alliance Wakeskating Mag. I think my first like paycheck was like $400 for like a whole month. I was getting like $50 a video.
Okay.
I was spending like $50 in gas to like make the video, but like hey,
you gotta get into
I was getting my videos out there, and the best part was like the comments. The comments were the best. Everybody was just like on there commenting like, "You sucks, this sucks, you suck," and I'd be like, "Damn it." So the next video, I'd make it better.
Yeah.
Right. And then I just kept trying to make it better and better and better. And it got to a point where nobody commented anymore. And then I was like, what the hell? No one's commenting. What's wrong? And they're like, well, the video's good, so they can't hate on it. And I'm like, damn it. So then I'd start getting weirder and like do different dubstep songs or just weird stuff. And then they comment like, this song sucks. I'm like, yes.
Engagement.
Like, we're getting engagement again. So I feel like I really was there, in that beginning. Like this is back before YouTube really took off. We were posting videos in 360p. Like quality. I mean, you couldn't even see what was going on in the video. It was all staticky and like bad quality. And you had the player on Alliance. It was like this hard coded you had to convert it to a certain quality, and then you had to post it. It was a nightmare. We had a server. You had to like upload your videos to the server, and then they had to host it there. It was a whole process. And then Vimeo came around.
Yeah,
that was when
Vimeo had to be next.
Vimeo was like HD for the first time ever. And that was like everybody got crazy when the HD thing happened.
For the kids out there too, there's a lot of gold on Vimeo that hasn't been transferred to YouTube or anywhere else. So if you're trying to look up some old wakeboarding, like Vimeo, there's a lot of good shit down there.
But I mean, I was very, very kind of I guess influenced by like the wake skating like vibe in the beginning. Kind of like wakeboarding wasn't as like grungy. Right, like wakeboarding was way more like, I got a nice boat, a nice car. Where like wake skating was like people with winches in the ditches covered in mud, and like breaking their bodies to like do a little kickflip down a spillway. Yeah, I remember hanging out with like Aaron Reed and Danny Hampson and like all those guys and traveling around with them and filming. It was like I look around, I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool, man.
More skate vibes.
Yeah, I'm hanging out with Aaron Reed, it's like, this dude's a legend. Like, back in the day, like, they were sponsored by Monster, they had this big deals, and it was like, wow, this is cool.
Yeah.
The wake skating stuff, I definitely miss the wake skating world. Yeah. Matt Hooker, back in the day, was one of my favorite to film. Dude was just, call him Hook Steez. Right? He had that hook. It was kind of like a Byerly hook, but his own little hook. Higher. It was like a little, every little trick he did, he would land and he'd be like, there it is. And it's just natural, right? It was natural, like, he just had that. And he it's funny because I talk to him every once in a while nowadays, and he's into kiteboarding and stuff. And I see a video of him kiteboarding. Still, it's still there, baby. You can't lose it. Once you you have that style, you'll always have that style.
Born with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so keep walking down.
Yeah. So basically, Alliance Wake Skating magazine was the beginning, but then I figured out pretty quickly there was no money in wake skating. This is before Nike really got into it. So I was already like friends with Silas Thurman, and I would go over to like Kevin Henshaw's place. That was when Steel Lafferty got on Nike. So then they signed, Nick Taylor. They signed Andrew Pastura. Ben Horan, those guys. So I was kind of like in that crew, but it was weird because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like they didn't really like me, if that makes sense. Because I think my personality was a lot different. Like Andrew Pastor was very like quiet,
reserved.
He's not gonna like brag about himself. Where like I was like, fuck, I made the sickest video ever. Look at this video, guys. And they'd be like, Patrick, like chill out, bro. And I'm like, nah, dude, we're killing it. Like I don't know. I just feel like a lot of people were turned off by my personality in the beginning because they just like. They didn't like that I was so like confident in myself, and I like also like I don't know, I kind of knew that I was gonna be good.
Yeah.
So I just ran with it, right? And I just kind of owned it. And I got a lot of pushback from like some of the older filmers in the beginning because they're like, "Who the fuck? Who's this guy?
Young kid.
Who does he think he is? Like he doesn't know what he's doing." I remember I went to Toe Jam. First time I ever went to Toe Jam to film. I was filming for Alliance, and I got there and I had a tripod. I had a monopod, like a monopod, with my camera on it. And Matt Staker, he's like, you can't film with a monopod. I'm like, what's the focus? What do you put that thing away? I'm like, what do you mean? And I'm like, he's like, he told me to put my monopod away. Matt Staker, like he used to film for Alliance and stuff back in the day, and he was like basically making fun of me for having a monopod. So I got rid of the monopod, and then I'm holding handheld. I'm like, I guess handheld's better, like. But it was like that was the thing, man. Like I think a lot of the older filmers and stuff kind of saw me as like they were kind of like, damn, this kid's gonna take over. Right, because I was so like I was everywhere. I was so motivated. Like I would want to film every single day. I'd be calling people like, "Hey, what are you doing today? Can I come over? Can we film something? Like, let's film a couple lines." Like I would just because I knew that I had to.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't that good at like filming. I felt like I wasn't that good at filming, so I knew that if I just like if I
did more than everybody else.
Yeah, if I filmed more than everybody else and I was there and I got all the shots, like if you're there filming all the time, you're gonna film cool stuff.
Yeah.
So that was my goal, right? Like I would film all day. I'd go home, I'd edit. I'd wake up, do it all over again. Like I'd edit till 3 a.m, wake up and go film more. Yeah. And I was just like, I was so hungry and insanely hungry. And I think people hated that. They were like mad about it. Kind of like, I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking that, but I feel like there was always this weird kind of like vibe.
Well, core boarding and any sport, like they don't really mesh with that.
That was always my thing, right? I hated that fact with wake skating because a lot of the wake skaters, they were like, oh dude, we don't care about filming. I'm like, yeah, but like if you don't film, then who's gonna see like your stuff? Who's gonna pay you to like be a sponsor? Yeah. They're not going to pay you to sit around and smoke weed all day. Yeah. I mean, and that's why wake skating basically died because like it got to a point where people just like they were too core, and that's what I loved about it. Like why try to be like you can be core, make cool stuff, but like put it out there. Be about it.
Yeah, you can be core, but like let people know that you're core. That's like a kooky ass sentence, but like show people what you're doing.
Don't be too core.
Show people what you're doing.
You're going to be so core that you're not going to have a job. That's
stay core, stay poor. That's
the
phrase.
So, and then what's funny is that at that point, I kind of like, after the wake skating stuff, I kind of figured out, I'm like, man, I'm not going to make any money wake skating. And I was actually wake skating a ton myself.
Yeah.
And I was like, every time I'd film, I'd be like, hey, can I get a pool? I'd do a couple of little shoves, a couple of reverts, riding behind the jet ski. I had a jet ski on Lake Jessamine, and I would ride 3 or 4 hours a day just out there wake skating. We'd hit, Brandon Thomas had some, like, him and Grubb had some rails.
Yeah.
And they'd get all mad and they'd put like chains on them, but we would still hit them. Even if there was a chain on it, like, fuck you, BT. I remember one time we rode by their house and like we see BT out there and he's like saying something. I was like, fuck you, BT. I'll fucking hit this rail if I want. And I sucked. I mean, I wasn't even good, but like we just wanted to be about it. We just like this, we loved it. Wake skating was life.
Yeah.
Like I had no money. I worked at the country club in Orlando and I was filming, making $400 a month or whatever. And it was like every chance I could get, it was wake skate.
Yeah.
We go behind the dinghy, the little tinnies. Everybody had like the little like outboard little like aluminum john boat, and like every lake had like a wake skater on it. So it was like, okay, let me call somebody. I'm like, hey, what are you doing? Let's go out. Let's go out and wake skate. So and I went to OWC like every day too. I mean, I lived and breathed wake skating for a long time.
It started with wake skating.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah, I think, but it also I think wake skating definitely made me look at like water sports differently, right? Because if you were too like I feel like if you came from like the ski world, then you saw like wakeboarding as like ski sport.
Yeah.
Where it's like you want to film it differently. Where like when I got into filming wakeboarding, I was like, okay, so you're just gonna do the same trick over and over behind a boat? Like, can we change it up? Like, can you do something different? What about a rail? Let's put a rail in the wakeboarding video, So that's that was kind of the progression. And then got into the whole, I guess, wakeboarding world.
Yeah, walk through that progression because you know, I mean, Alliance and all that stuff, right?
I think I wanted to talk about this actually before on the way. I was like trying to think about funny stories. So Rusty Malinowski, right? He's a gnarly dude. He's scary, but he's cool. But he's scary, especially if you're a kid, you know. And I'm like, I don't really know much about him, and I'm filming, and like in Alliance, like, hey, we need to go film. We're gonna go film Rusty. I'm like, Rusty, you know, back in the day, he was like, he's a family man now, you know, but back in the day, he was gnarly. Like, he would fight people, and like, you know, it's just kind of a gnarly dude. And it was hilarious because he was living out in Claremont, and I would always go to people's houses early. Like, I would always show up early. Like, today I showed up early. If I say 10, I'm going to be there at 9:40.
Well, you're not a typical wakeboarder.
Yeah, and that was the problem, right? I would always show up early, and they'd be mad. Like, why are you here? Why'd you show up 5 minutes early? I'm not ready, you know? I was like, oh, fuck, okay. So the last thing I was going to do was show up to Rusty's house early. Yeah. So I drive out to Claremont, and he's like, he lives in that one little lake, and then right by his house was like this development that they were building, like still in the process. So I was like, okay, at the time I had a van, this like piece of shit van. I had no money. And I was like, okay, I'll just go park in there, and I'll wait until it's like time.
Yeah.
So I go down there, I park, and then I go to start the van, and I go to pull out, and I'm stuck. I get stuck in this fucking development. I'm like, oh my God. So I called somebody at Alliance. I was like, hey, what do I do? And they're like, I don't know, just call Rusty. I'm like, I can't call Rusty. Are you kidding me? So I call him. I'm like, hey, bro, it's Patrick. He's like, where are you at? I'm like, I'm down the street from your house. So I'm like, can you come pull me out? So he had to come with his truck and pull me out. And this is the first time I ever met the guy. He doesn't know who I am or nothing. I have this big, like, converting this big van. And it was like such a wild way of like meeting somebody. I'm like, yeah, just pull me out really quick, bro. And then we'll go to your house and film. So yeah, he came and pulled me out. And yeah, I mean, I feel like I filmed Rusty a bunch, like as the kind of it evolved, because Rusty, he was a professional, right? He knew that like, he needed to film first off. So if it was like, if you're going to film, he was ready. Like he'd have a chase boat.
He took that shit seriously.
Yeah. He'd have a chase boat. He'd have gas. He'd have an extra driver. Like it was, you know, Rusty's program. Yeah. So you'd get there and it's like, all right, we're filming. And he'd be like, all right, I got to go after this. I got to go to the gym. You know, it was like very structured. So when you work with something like that, you're like, wow, okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah. And then, yeah, I mean, Rusty was kind of like some of the first guys, and then kind of filming just all the Liquid Force guys. Alliance and Liquid Force were always obviously like really close. Hyperlight, Liquid Force, pretty much like the same at that point. But, you know, getting to film, you know, Sean Watson and those guys. But honestly, I told you earlier about the Byerly stuff, right? So growing up, Byerly was a legend, obviously in Orlando. Like everybody knew who Scott Byerly was, one of the best wakeboarders in the world. And he became a wake skater. And I grew up watching videos, had a poster of him on my wall. I had his pro model Reef shoes, which I'm mad about because like Reef should still make those shoes. They were sick shoes. They were shoes that had like the vents in them. You could wear them in the water.
Says, dude.
I'm like, why would you get rid of those?
Yeah.
So I had a pair of those. I went to high school wearing them. I told people like, yeah, I got the Byerlys, you know. And I was like, in my high school, there was actually kids who were older than me that were big into wake skating on Lake Pickett. And that was like Thomas Harrell and all those guys would go to Lake Pickett. Like the whole cassette team would be out there. And we would sneak out there and watch them. We had like Wes Briscoe, the Gator. So like Gator Wakeboards back in the day was a big team. You had Ryan Doyle, all those guys, Lake Pickett. And it was like, it was wild. Like Lake Pickett was kind of like the mecca at one point where everyone was out there building rails and doing weird stuff and going crazy. And we were kids growing up watching that. So that was really cool. And then I think the first time I went to film Byerly, I had a baby at the time and I brought my baby. And and this is like Scott Byerly, you know, I'm like, hey Byerly, can you mind if I bring my baby while I film you? You know, he's like, yeah, whatever, dude. And I get there, and Byerly was honestly one of my favorite people to film ever because he literally, I love Byerly because he was like my hero or like this kind of like, you know, figure growing up.
Larger than life kind of guy.
Yeah, larger than life guy. Like this guy's a legend, right? And so then I get to film and I'm like, man, he's cool, right? Like he's not a dick. He's not an asshole. He's not conceited. He's not going to, you know, he was always really, really cool to me. And that's like, I really appreciate that. Because I feel like some people you meet, you're like, oh, dude, this guy's an asshole. Yeah. This guy sucks. But like Byerly he was always down, you know? And like he kind of knew that obviously he wasn't like on the forefront of wake skating at that point. You know, his career like was, you know, not that it was like going down, but like he wasn't gonna win a world championship anytime soon. So, you know, he was aware of that. So it was, you know, there'd be days where he was trying to do a kickflip or trying to do a shove, and we'd be filming for a while, and it would get kind of awkward because you're like, oh, he tried this 100 times now, like. He ain't going to get it, you know, but you're not going to tell the legend that he ain't going to land it. So you just keep filming and you keep smiling like, yeah, I got number 99 try. So Byerly, you know, Rusty, those guys, like, they were kind of like already adults when I was still a kid. So it was cool to like work with those guys. But then it was really cool kind of like getting into the Nike, like the 6.0 days. Yeah. So like Kevin Henshaw had a house in Claremont, and you had, you know, Steele Lafferty, you had Silas Thurman. Silas is a legend. Silas was like, you know, he was a wake skater. He wasn't like an amazing wake skater, but he was good. He kind of knew how to like build his name and stuff. And then he got a job at Nike, and that's when everything took off. Like that was like a wild time because Nike was just like giving us free shoes. And I remember having just boxes of Nikes at my house, and I'm like, Silas, like, yeah, what size are you? I'll get him to send you like 100 pairs. I'm like, sick. I'd have all these Nikes, and I was selling Nikes. I would like get a box of Nikes, and I'd call my friends and be like, hey bro, I got a pair of Nikes. What size are you? $50. They're yours. And I was like, that's how I was living. Like I would sell Nikes, I would sell like wakeboarding gear that I would get for free, and it was quite the evolution. And then I'm trying to think like that was like even before like Raft to Rome, but yeah, Steele Lafferty, Kevin Henshaw, that was a good time. Yeah, it was like a good year when we were like in Claremont, pretty much at Kevin Henshaw's house, just partying, raging, wakeboarding, and it was it was just like that's all we did. Yeah, we just wakeboarded, we just like wake skated, and just like it was your whole life was on the lake. Like I spent more time on the lake than I did like, you know, at my house basically at that point. And that's like, I don't know, it was just like, it was a really cool time to be alive and just be a part of it. Cause that was really when social media, there was no Instagram, there was nothing really, but that was when the internet first started kind of like people web were posting the internet. Stuff, yeah. Web videos started like, people started watching web videos. Cause for a long time it was, you had to wait for a DVD to come out. And then the web, you know, the web kind of killed it all, killed the full length, and it killed the magazines. Sure did. But you know, you had to kind of evolve and that, but it was fun because it was like evolving really quickly, but we were all part of it.
So when did you officially, you're talking about Alliance, when did you officially worked at Alliance?
Yeah, right? So I think they might say I never officially worked there, but I'm pretty sure I officially worked there. You know, I would go to the bro stocks and we'd film stuff for, you know, different Alliance TV shows and all that, working with Josh and those guys and everybody at Alliance, Keith Kipp and all those guys filming, and it was cool, man. I think I was really, really lucky that I got in when I got in because it was the perfect time for someone like me, right? Because I wasn't like a hardcore like, oh, I need to film an hour-long movie. Yeah, I was like, I want to film anything. I don't even care. I don't care how long. Like I'll put a 5-second clip on the internet if it gets views, you know. Like and that's what we started doing. We started like we would put like little like just one little clip on the internet, and it was like, wow, look at this guy do it. That was
before its time, right?
Yeah, but it was like it was innovative, you know. Like we had every Wednesday, new trick Wednesday, and I'd go out and I'd try to film someone do a new trick that never landed before. Yeah, and then we put it on the internet like the same day, and it was like people were like, wow, did you see so and so landed the first ever triple big spin, you know, front big spin, and just like all this crazy stuff, and it was really fun to be a part of it and to kind of like see the evolution of it. I mean, wake skating was taking off at that time, and then wakeboarding was taking off, right? Like everybody, that was like. People weren't doing 1080s. Like it wasn't like a normal thing. And then just like people really started pushing it there at that point. You had all the young kids coming up. Everyone's hungry. Yeah. You know, Steele Lafferty at the time. It was just like, send it. And that was his kind of vibe. And then you had, you know, Jimmy the Rich, you know, and I lived with Jimmy for a while and like filmed with him a ton. And I think, I mean, he might not be happy for me to say this, but I think, you know, Jimmy was very talented. Yeah. But he kind of, he got caught in the whole like pro wakeboarder life, right?
Like partying.
Yeah. I mean, it would get bad, right? Like it would be a point where like he would come home from a trip or a boat show, like on a Sunday night. He'd be like, hey, pick me up. I'd pick him up. He'd be like, all right, let's go to Wall Street. Let's go to Wall Street. I'm like, fuck, it's Jimmy, don't you want to film tomorrow morning? Oh, no, we'll be fine. So we'd go downtown, you know, party, come home, party on the boat, and then there would be no wakeboarding happening. It would just be a lot of partying, and you know, and it was fun, but it definitely wasn't good for his wakeboarding career. Yeah. That's for sure. So I mean, you can't be a pro wakeboarder forever either. That's the problem. I think a lot of people they're like,
it's a balance, right? Because you do want to party because it's only so long that you're going to be in this thing where it's going to be like, all right, let's do it. But also, it could last maybe a little bit longer if you don't do as much partying.
Yeah, I mean, there's a balance for sure. Yeah. There's definitely a balance because it's funny because there's the guys that never partied. And I feel like their career never really took off because, to be honest, like obviously the wakeboarding world is such a bro sport, right? So it's like, if you don't party with me, then you're not gonna get sponsored by me.
Okay, so you've been in media and in the
Yeah.
wakeboarding world, and you've been around. So like, is that kind of adage true? I've heard it murmured here and there of like,
No,
if you don't party, if you don't drink, you're gonna.
We
have
would
a
go
hard
on
time.
like Slingshot, like team trips, and like if people like weren't drinking, they'd be like outcasted. You know, like, hey, everyone's doing a shot. Oh, I don't like doing shots. Well, shut the fuck up and do a shot, or you're out of here. You know, like back in the day, Slingshot, the original Slingshot kiteboarding team was gnarly. Like they would like light people on fire and like fight people, and like it was like normal life, right? Like you would, if you were the Grom on the team, you were in trouble.
You're getting hazed.
And then nowadays it's like, oh, you can't do that. You can't tell someone that they're, oh, you can't say that. You can't punch somebody in the face and then laugh about it. You know, but back then, like that's what it was. Like I remember when I first started working for Slingshot, I was staying at the team manager's house at the time, Wade Wagley. We went out, we got so drunk that night. I came home, slept on his couch, woke up, pissed all over the couch. Like literally just pissed all over the couch. And I'm like, oh shit, like what? But that was normal. That was like that was just like we were just partying.
Yeah.
But it was like that was like the best connections were always made for sure, like in the party, in the drink, and drinking together.
I wouldn't say that's unusual for any industry or anything, right? Like that's when a lot of people bond.
And that's why I said, like if you weren't in that like group of guys partying, then you probably like you didn't get the coverage.
Yeah.
Right, because people didn't want to hang out with you. They're like, oh, that guy's no fun. He don't want to. He don't want to smoke weed. He don't want to party. He just wants to ride all day. And that there was like you had the people that were just like the gnarly PWT. You had Aaron Rathy who was just like, nah, just aggro, so aggro. Aaron Rathy. That's what I love about Aaron Rathy. And people don't understand is like at one point Aaron Rathy was just this aggro, gnarly contest machine.
Yeah.
Right, like just gnarly contest machine. He had a shaved head. He would like yell and scream, and he'd break boards, and he was gnarly. Like you didn't want to be in his way. You'd be like, oh fuck, like don't look at that guy when you had a bad run, like. But now he's got long hair, he's got his earrings, he's traveling the world filming. I saw him at the airport the other day actually. I'm like walking by and I see Aaron. I'm like Rathy. He's like Patrick. I'm like, where are you going? He's like, oh, I'm going so. I'm like, oh, I'm going this way. And it's like, it's funny because at one point he was just like this gnarly contest machine, and then I think he just kind of like was like, oh, it's done. I'm done with contests, and he quit. And then he went and became this like kind of just hippie filmer dude.
Well, he also had, I feel like, that free ride era of his career, maybe kind of after the contest thing where he did some of the craziest shit, just like free riding video style stuff.
He did. He was putting out some sick videos. That was kind of like the Harley and Rathy days, right? Where it was like, all right, Rathy would put out a video, and then Harley would put out a video, and then it would go back and forth. And that was sick because like when Harley came around, I remember like everybody being like, dude, what are we gonna do? Right? Like he's just too good. Like no one's gonna beat him. He can just like he can spin. He's got terrible style, but like on the PWT, no one cares. It wasn't about style. Like there was back in the day, it was just about who can do the most amount of tricks in a line with the most amount of spins. Yeah, and that's all it was. Obviously, like it kind of evolved where you had to do like one style trick and you had to do other stuff, but. Yeah, the PWT, like beginning of PWT days were the best, especially the girls on the PWT. Yeah, it was like, well, because you were like something's gonna happen good today. Who's gonna run into the rail? Like girls, I don't know what it is about girls, but they just love running into rails. And that might sound messed up to say, but like there were some girls back in the day. There would be a huge rail, on the PWT. They would do a trick and run right into it, just smack into it, just smash.
How much opportunity did you have to practice on those rails too? Because unless if you went to the projects when that rail was there, right? Like that's very few.
Oh, I can still remember literally even at the toe jam, one of the girls, Jen Gillenfar, she was in the toe jam, the girls division, and there was a incline, and there was like you had to ollie onto it. Sure. But for some reason, girls didn't know you had to ollie. Oh shit! Oh man, breaking it down here. Yeah, for real. But she didn't know you had to ollie, and I remember watching her just ride up, go like board slide on the water, and just die. And everyone's like, "Didn't she know you had to ollie? Like you got to ollie to get on the rail, So like that was definitely like I said, it was always kind of a treat to see who was going to crash into what and how are they going to do it. But the projects. We know what's funny is I don't want to say I was like an OG projects person, but I was there like I feel like in the kind of like in the last evolution of the project.
Yeah, I want to hear about the project days. You spent some time there.
You got Mark Rossiter. You got just all the
style right there.
Yeah,
Mark Rossiter.
I was there the day Mark showed up. I actually messaged him the other day on Instagram because he posted a photo of him and his baby with his new haircut, and I'm like, hey, I'll never forget when you showed up to the projects dressed in all black, your long hair, and you're like, hey mate, where's the bedroom at? Well, anybody got a J? Anybody want to smoke a spliff? I'm like, what the fuck's a spliff? Like, what, this guy's crazy. But he was British and he was sick and yeah, super cool dude. And I was there, for you had Nate Perry, Rossiter, just all the rail guys at the time. And I would go out and hit the rails. Like we would just go out and just ride in the park all day and hit rails, film and try to film stuff. And the projects was, you had Papanakos, which was obviously like one of the first guys to really start like, with unit, with the rails and all that. And
definitely.
Kind of on the forefront with the Wake Lab. They built the Wake Lab in Orlando and just all that stuff. So Pat was always, I feel Pat doesn't get enough credit, obviously, for like how much he really like pushed the sport in that direction of like rail riding. And
if you know, but there's just a lot of people that don't know.
Yeah, well, and that's his personality too. Like he would never claim it. He would never be like, oh yeah, I invented that. I worked with Unit to make those rails better.
Yeah,
but he did, and it was funny because his wife at the time, or I think still his wife, but his wife, she would watch my baby. I'd go out to the projects and I'd drop the baby off. I'd go film and then come pick the baby up and I'd leave. And it was Courtney. Yeah, it was sick, man. The projects was like a little family, like Mike Grasso, Josh Kirby. They were like coaches living there at the projects. And I feel like I forget a lot about the projects days because it was so long ago, but it was a good time to be alive. And it was wholesome. You just had like a bunch of people with all just one goal of like doing sick stuff.
Similar mindsets.
Film. Yeah. And you're like, what can we film next? We'd watch snowboard videos and then we'd be like, okay, yeah, we can maybe build a rail like that. And then we'd be like, nah, you're going to die on a wakeboard if you try to hit that, But there were some rails out there. And I remember it was just like, if you could just board slide the whole rail, it was like, you did it, And that was my goal. I remember I was like, I'm going to board. There was the big gator rail that was like, it was like an up and then the flat, but you had to like, you couldn't like, you had to jump.
Yeah, there's a little gap.
To the little gap to the top and then off it. And I remember like doing that for the first time ever for myself. And I was like, I had a Ronix Rome. It was like the snowboard Ronix board that was literally, it was terrible. I mean, it was literally just like a noodle, So when you went to ollie, it would just
collapse on you.
And then I remember when they put the System 2. When System 2 was like the first System 2 ever, when they put it out there, and like that's when Keith Lidberg was out there, and he was just doing air tricks. Like there wasn't even any rails. They put it like in the ball sack of the projects, and that was when it really changed too. Because like System 2, wow, this is gonna change the game. And like I said, like we loved wakeboarding, right? It wasn't a job. I never was like, oh, I'm clocking in, clocking out. It was just like, I just want to go like wakeboard all day.
Eating it up all day, every day.
Film stuff and like do cool videos. And big shout out to Papanakos for letting us do that. He really like pushed us to like go out there and film and do cool stuff.
Yeah, he definitely helped push the sport forward that a lot of people don't realize, which is crazy. But all right, so you spent a lot of time in media, filming and stuff. I want to know what you learned about the wakeboard industry the further you got behind the scenes.
What I really learned is what happens is this, right? So you have an industry, you have you have companies. So like Alliance, for example, a lot of those guys, they worked at Alliance for a long time, right? And every year they're getting a little pay raise. They're getting a little pay raise, and it gets to a point where you have a guy that's like, oh, I'm the publisher of the magazine who's making $500,000 a year because I've been doing it for 20 years, but it's not sustainable. So you have this company of like all these kind of like older guys who
is that $500,000 a year a real number?
I mean, Bill McCaffrey lives a pretty good life. I'm not going to speculate, but like I can't imagine him making not a lot of money because he lives in Carlsbad and like California ain't cheap.
That's true.
I mean, who knows what he actually makes, but like I think it's just like if me and you had a magazine, we could be like, all right, bro, we can live on the two of us can live in a house together. We can make this sick ass magazine and we can make enough money to like make it all work. Yeah. Whereas like, hey, you have a family, I have a family, we have other employees, we got 20 employees. How are we going to make this keep working? So that was the issue with Alliance, right? There was just too much fat. You had too many people that really didn't have a job. Like they had this one guy who was like, this guy Rusty, I don't remember his last name, but he basically, I don't know, he was like an intern that turned into an employee. But it's like, what do you really do? He didn't really do anything. He wasn't going out and filming. He wasn't like taking photos. So it was kind of like, he just had a job, but really not doing anything.
Yeah. So
it was like, you had a lot of money being spent on this magazine, and pretty much anytime somebody would come into the sport, any brand, Alliance would be like, hey, I'm gonna basically milk this company for as much as I can get because I don't know how long they're gonna be here. Perfect example. This might get me into some trouble, but like Vans, right? Vans comes into the sport. They go to Corey Murata, who's, I'm not gonna get into that, but Corey Murata, I'd say never mind. But they go to Corey and they're like, Corey, we want two two like really good riders to be on Vans. And at the time, you know, there were a lot of really good riders. But the problem was Corey had a boner for Stu Shin and then Randall Harris. And I love both those guys. I filmed with Stu Shin a bunch. I filmed with Randall. You know, like I remember one time Randall wanted to kill me, but yeah, we're good. You know, like I think even if I saw Randall today, he'd be like, Pat, I respect you. And I would say the same thing to him. But like there was a time where it's just like he didn't really align, you know, with like the future of a brand. You know, it was kind of like we love Randall, but like Randall's just not he's not taking the sport to another level. You know, he's not a Rafter Rome. He's not a, you know, someone who's really taking the sport to another level because he kind of had the heydays and he's a legend all day. I think Randall is one of the sickest.
I guess what year are we talking? This whole situation.
This would have been like what, like 2009, 2010, you know, early. And so, you know, basically they sell Vans on this idea of like you're gonna get Randall Harris and you're gonna get Stu Shin. Stu was like
wakeboarder, wake skate.
Yeah, you're gonna get the two. But like I said, Randall was kind of already going out. Like his career was kind of like peaked.
Yeah.
So it's like to get a company to sponsor a rider like that, it's just like the results aren't going to be what they expect, right? So you sell them on like, hey, this is the first time you're going to sponsor a wakeboarder. So let's put you in with a guy who's already, you know, this legendary rider.
Established.
But it's like you're going to pay him a bunch of money, but he's not going to get you results. He has no motivation to go out and film like a new trick. He has no motivation to go out and film video parts because he's already kind of done it, you know? Whereas like I feel like if they would have sponsored, you know, a younger guy, somebody who was like coming up,
who was like kind of established, but still had
somebody who has
a
something
lot
to prove,
go.
that wanted to like, you know, someone to sponsor, like, I don't know, just a younger guy who was on the way up.
Yeah.
You know, someone who might be the next big legend. Like that would have been the route, right? Instead of spending all the money to get two of these legendary people just because Corey needed them to get sponsors because he has other sponsors that are basically tied to them. That was the problem, was Alliance would like basically get a rider and they would get like sunglasses, they would get the energy drink, they would get the boat, they would get every sponsor. And then now Alliance is like in debt to that, like they're in debt with that rider because like if that rider doesn't deliver, now they've sold 6 brands.
Yeah, it's not just one brand.
Yeah, they've sold 6 brands on this rider that Alliance thinks is going to be like the way that this company needs to promote themselves. And I was like, that's just like, even at the time I was like, that's a bad move because those guys, they're just not like, you're spending a bunch of money to not get a lot of results. Where for me, I was like, why not sponsor like 2 or 3 up and coming riders, and then maybe one of those riders becomes like the next big thing ever.
Through.
So that way, Van's like, damn, we spent 10 grand, and now we have one of the best riders ever. Like that's sick. Whereas, hey, we spent $100,000 to get Randall Harris, and he did nothing. So what happens after the first year? What does Vans do? Vans goes, hey, what were the results? We spent $300,000. What results did we get? And they're like, well, nothing. And what does Vans do? They obviously pull out. They're like, oh, we're not going to sponsor that. It's not like there's no story there. And it's funny because like I just don't think it really fit the brand of Vans anyway. Yeah. I felt like Vans was like younger, like it especially in the surfing world.
I could see Randall if years prior, Vans and Randall, I think that would be a pretty good alignment. But
100%, yeah. And again, like I'm not hating on Vans. I'm just saying I think it would have been better for Alliance to be like, hey, let's figure out a 5-year plan instead of let's not like just spend all the money day one.
Sure.
And that was like, I knew that was going to happen. And they did that a lot. Whenever a company would come into the industry, they would just rape them as much money as they could get. Because again, they have very high overhead. Where like if me and you were running a magazine, we could be like, yeah, man, give us 50 grand. We'll get you a rider. We'll get you the ads. And it'll be a good deal for everybody. And that way at the end of the year, Vans is like, damn, we spent 50 grand. We got all this content. Yeah. Whereas, hey, we spent $500,000 and all we got was, what did we get? We didn't get anything because Stu didn't do anything and Randall didn't do anything. Yeah. And that was definitely happening in the industry a lot. And Alliance was obviously, very much behind that. And then obviously, they had a huge control over who really got the spotlight. And again, if Corey Murata convinces 6 brands to sponsor Stu Shin, what is Corey Murata not going to put Stu Shin on the cover of Alliance? They have to, because it's like, we got to get him on the cover because we got to tell, they're motivated to promote the riders that they are getting sponsored. Yeah. And I felt like that was always a really big injustice to a lot of the riders who could have really, who were out there grinding and could have used that, but they never got the love because Corey didn't have a boner for them.
It's tough with independent media, right? Because you either are truly independent, and I don't know any of the details on this stuff, but it's like you're either truly independent where you don't owe anybody anything, and you truly can be like, all right, this is the best shot of this time frame. It's getting the cover. Yeah. And you don't think about who's the board sponsor, who's the binding sponsor, who's the clothing. You don't think about that. But when you do have, that's very interesting to.
No, the covers were promised.
Yeah.
Every year you were like, there's 12 covers. There's 12. We already have our brands who are getting 12 covers. It was never like, oh, this is the guy who deserves a cover.
Yeah.
And I get the business of it. I do. Like, I'm not like saying you can't make a business, but like, I just felt like it was always about the business and more like, dude, you see this photo? It's the sickest photo ever. And they're like, yeah, we can't use that. Like, he's got no sponsors. I'm like, damn, like,
that's
tough. That was hard. And obviously that also influenced me, right? Because they told me, hey, I need to go film Rusty because Rusty's sponsored by Rockstar. He's sponsored by Mastercraft. He's sponsored by this company. We have to make videos of Rusty. And I'm like, yeah, but Rusty's not really doing anything. He's not like, he's just doing the same tricks over and over. And now Rusty's going to beat me up. But like, that was the truth, right? It just really was.
Yeah.
And I still see that today. I'm like, you had a lot of riders who stayed relevant a lot longer than they should just because somebody who was irrelevant at a magazine thought they were cool and they wanted to be bros and party with them. Like, I like partying with that guy. It's like, yeah, but that guy's not doing anything. He's not bringing value to the industry. He's just existing in this industry. And that was, I was young and maybe I was naive and maybe I wanted, more pure, value to people and be like, oh, this guy really deserves that cover. Cause like, that's the thing too, is like, you look at a kid who had nothing, for him to get a cover and then to get sponsors, like that's the dream, right? Like this kid gets on a cover and then he gets sponsored by Red Bull the next month. You're like, wow. Like now that kid gets to travel the world wakeboarding. Like that was always like, I thought that's how it should have been. The covers should have been given to people who could use them, if that makes sense, right? Like don't just give the covers to Rusty because he's sponsored by Mastercraft so that we can see the same, trick 100 times over.
Yeah, it's kind of more about building the sport and like you build the base of it by getting all these different people on there as long as they're doing sick shit and doing it right rather than kind of just keeping the same circle.
Give the cover, like you said, give the cover to people who deserve it.
Yeah.
Give it to like the sickest shot. Give it to the guy who's like, he went out and he built this rail and he fucking let it on fire and he almost risked his life to get a photo.
Yeah.
Right? And you're like, that's a sick, like, look at this story. Like, but it wasn't that. It was like, oh, just have Rusty go do a double up. I was like, oh, like, why? Like, I don't want that. We don't need that, So, yeah, I mean, I hate to like sit here and talk crap about Alliance because obviously like that was a huge influence in my career. They gave me, they opened a lot of doors.
And they have done a shit ton.
100%. Yeah. But I think I can say these things because I was there when it happened. I was a part of it. I'm not just from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
Like I saw the issues. I saw they were spending way too much money on stuff that wasn't relevant. And I'm out there grinding, like literally filming every single day, spending all my money on camera gear, editing all night, and I'm making $3,000 a month. And it's like, I can barely afford to live. And then you got a guy in California who just works in the office making $75,000 a year working in the office. And it's like, I'm out here. I'm the only reason Alliance has content is because I'm doing it. And I can barely survive. I would tell Bill, I'm like, Bill, I can't even pay my gas. I get $3,000 a month and I'm out there filming every single day and editing that's crazy. Yeah. Like I was like, my day rate's like $20 a day at that point. Like I'm getting $20 a day to live. Like it's crazy. And then trying to get reimbursed. I try to get reimbursements. Oh yeah, right. Patrick, we don't do reimbursements. I'm like, oh, okay. That sucks. Like I had to buy this new thing just because you guys wanted me to buy this, but I guess I'll buy it, whatever. But I loved it. I was a fan. That was the problem too.
Well, and that's with these niche industries, right? Like you have to love it. Otherwise you're not going to do it because the dollars and the cents don't make sense. Right. So it's like, yeah, it's a weird position to be in. It's a tricky position, right? Because
it's a tricky position. And then like, again, you have so many different personalities.
Yeah.
Right. You have so many different personalities. It's funny. So obviously like I was working for Alliance and that's kind of like where I became friends with Jeff McKee. At one point, as funny as it sounds, like at one point me and Jeff McKee were like, we were best friends.
Yeah.
Right. Like we hung out every day. We filmed every day. We worked every day together. But then it got to a point where like I started like, kind of wondered myself. I remember he stopped working for Alliance and he told me, he's like, Patrick, we should start a production company. I'm like, a production company? He's like, yeah, like filming. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Like, so you'll be like a producer. He's like, no, I'll be like a filmer. I'm like, but you don't film. Like, how the fuck are you going to film? He's like, and I'm like, well, like, I'll give you 10. I told him, I was like, I'll give you 10% of whatever you bring. Like, if you go get a company that wants me to make a video, I'll give you 10% of that. That's all. Like, you don't have to do any work. Just go get me the business and I'll give you 10%. He's like, no, it's 50-50. I was like, no. Like there's no, I built up this whole life. I've put so much effort and you want 50-50? Like it's crazy. So like I was really good friends with Jeff and I think Jeff is really good at making himself relevant for a very long time, which is still amazing because he still works for Slingshot, which is a whole other topic in itself. But, Alliance really kind of put me on the map and it put me with the right people. And that's kind of how I got with Slingshot. And that's how I, started film. I filmed every single brand in the industry at one point. Every brand offered me like, hey, come be our full-time filmer at one point. I'm like, I remember Centurion Boats one time was there like, we're going to pay you $100,000 a year to film all of our content. And I was like, okay, I was pretty much down for it.
Yeah.
But then I'm talking to them and they're like, okay, so our marketing plan is that we build the best boats. I'm like, but you don't. They're like, yeah, but we do. They're the sickest boats. I'm like, Centurion was like ran by a bunch of rednecks, right? And they were like, in their heads, they're like, yeah, we got the best boats. They're the best. We make the biggest wakes of the best. And it's like, yeah, but like they're not. So I'm like, why you can't create a whole marketing plan where you're like, we make the best. So like, why not just like make a marketing plan where you're like, hey, we make a really good boat. It's not the best boat, but we make a really good boat for a really good price. And they didn't want to do that. So I was like, I can't do this deal. So I walked away from a 6-figure deal because at the time I was like, how am I going to make content? How am I going to make promotional stuff where it's like, I don't even believe in it.
Yeah.
So that's another reason. Like there was companies, like O'Brien or different wakeboarding companies that wanted me to work with them. I'd be like, but I can't. Your riders are terrible. Like I can't film them. So that's really like, that's why I was so attracted to Slingshot.
Yeah.
Cause I was like, at the time Slingshot had like, they had Nate Perry, they had all these kind of up and coming guys that were doing cool stuff. And I was like, oh, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of the push. I don't want to be a part of the old company that I got to still make relevant. I don't want to like make videos of O'Brien and be like, O'Brien makes the best boards. It's like, they're not that good, So like that was, as much as I wanted to make money, I still obviously like I couldn't get behind something that I didn't even love.
Yeah.
Like I rode Slingshot. Like when the first like flex Slingshot boards were, coming out, I was like, that was the most amazing thing ever. I loved it. I mean, it was go to the cable park. If you were a cable rider, when Slingshot first came out, it was the best thing ever. Because it was like first time ever having a flexi board that wasn't like, a noodle. You had actual rocker. You could do insane nose presses. Like I just go to the OWC and just do nose presses across that, the box for 6 hours a day and thought I was doing something, man. I'm like, you guys see my nose press? I was so on there.
Okay, before we dive into more Slingshot, I think it's time we dive into the LF'n Wheel of Questions presented by Liquid Force.
The LF'n Wheel of Questions.
Okay, let's go.
So if you go ahead and grab that down, you can grab it over there and put it on the table here. Ooh. So Liquid Force likes to make wakeboarding fun. So let's make this podcast a little bit more fun. Spin the LF'n Wheel of Questions. Yeah. We got a couple of things on here. We got a hot take on here, which I'm not worried about you landing on at all. And then we got some other interesting ones on there. Okay. So yeah, go ahead and boulder bear.
Is there a better this way or this way? Just go for
either just give it a rip.
All right.
Yeah, there we go. That's a good spin right there.
Ooh,
all right, okay,
favorite camera.
Favorite camera. And then this is all time. So not right now.
Yeah, no, favorite camera.
To film with.
Probably like the HVH. What is it? The HVX.
Is it the one right there?
Yeah, it would have been this one right here, baby. I mean, this was the workhorse, right?
I still use that guy.
This is it. This was. What's funny is Alliance. So AVE was Alliance's like production company, right? And this was the camera. And I remember being a kid and being like, man, if I could buy the HVX 2000, like I could do it, right? I could make a living. This was
That's the one.
The dream. No, it really was. Cause back in the day, this is all we filmed with.
Yeah.
You could get them wet. You could film all day. The batteries were perfect. You had the zoom. You could get weird. Yeah, no, I loved this camera. This was the camera.
Still a great camera.
Yeah, still, I mean, you can't beat it. It's a great camera. And it's funny because, the HVX was like, I had one of these bad boys and I traveled all over the world with it. I filmed, countless tricks that had never been done before. Just, I wish I still had my old camera. Yeah, I got the little P2s in the back there. Oh, look at the
you know how to get those out. Yeah,
I haven't even seen these in for it.
I think I got an 8 and a 16 in
there.
Yeah. Still kicking.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Films on tape too, if you want.
Yeah.
Do that. I think my tape drive's broken on that, but
that's
the P2.
This is it, man. No, that was the workhorse. I think every wakeboarder can see this camera and be like, oh yeah, I remember that camera.
Yeah.
I remember being in the chase boat, and being like, all right, here we go, boys.
Dude. The cool thing is, when footage is filmed on HVX when you watch it. At least if you filmed with HVX, that's like, oh, that's HVX footage.
Well, and then it was funny too because there was a point where when we were filming with DV tapes before the P2 cards. I mean, the P2 cards when they first came out were so expensive. Yeah. So it was like if you could only afford to buy one P2 card, and you're like, oh, okay, I had one card, but sometimes you'd have to end up filming on tape. Yeah. And then, the whole, people would be like, oh, let me look at the clip. I'm like, bro, I can't show you the clip. Like, that was the funniest thing is, you would film a clip and be like, let me look at it. I'm like, I can't.
Yeah.
Because I can't rewind. Because what if I rewind over it? I can't. That was the rule. there's no viewing tapes.
Yeah.
Like you can't go
You
back.
could view on the P2 card.
P2
On the
you
tape,
could, yeah,
no,
100%.
you're
Like
not.
tape,
Yeah.
I mean, my first camera would have been, something just
Something
like
like
this.
that, high eight
yeah.
type thing,
Like
yeah.
literally just like
Yeah.
filming. But yeah, no, that's
All right. I love that answer. That's a great answer.
yeah. I mean, it's hard to
HVX.
I think obviously when the 5D first came out, just leave it there.
Yeah, we got one more thing.
So yeah, we know when the 5D came out, that really revolutionized kind of the filming world too, because everybody was like, well, "Look at me, I can rack focus." How many fucking videos on the internet of people rack focusing on a board in the rack of a wakeboarding boat?
All of them.
All of them. I mean, it was like
for a period.
yeah. Did you guys see that new video where he's rack focusing everything? I saw that you actually had what was it? The Wilson brothers here.
Yeah.
I actually filmed a video back in the day of the Wilson brothers at the projects. Yeah, with Brooks. It was epic. It's a fucking epic. I filmed it all red camera, and I filmed them slalom skiing.
Do you remember what the name of that video was? Because they did a bunch of those online videos.
It was filmed at the projects like early morning with the steam,
Yeah.
and I could find it on Vimeo probably. But yeah, it was epic.
I can dig that up. We got an LF'n wild card from the crew at Liquid Force, and they're
Okay.
wondering your favorite video project you ever worked on.
Favorite video project I ever worked on.
This could be web edit. This could be full length, Lipsmack.
I mean,
situation.
yeah, it's hard to say anything other than Lipsmack.
Yeah.
I did film a lot of really cool stuff with Liquid Force over the years.
Yeah.
When is Aaron Grace still there?
I don't think
so.
he is,
Yeah,
no.
so Aaron Grace was like the team manager at the time, and like it was fun. Liquid Force had they had the best riders, for a long time, and it was like, Phil, even as much as people hated Phil Sovin, it was like if you're gonna go film Phil Sovin, you knew you're gonna get a banger.
Yeah.
Right, because you're like, he's just gonna do every single trick in his run, and like he'll land it first try. It was never like, oh, is he gonna land it? Like it's just like, okay, I know what I'm filming today.
Yeah.
His PWT run, it's sick. And then obviously Bob and all, but for sure, Lipsmack.
Yeah, that's okay. All right, so we can go ahead and put the LF'n questions back. Thank you to Liquid Force for that.
Yeah.
So before we get into Slingshot, I want to ask, because you were behind the scenes for a long time, who was one rider that sticks out that wasn't, had the potential but didn't break through, didn't make it, but you really thought or saw was like, man, if they would have just got a little bit more coverage, or if this, that, or the other reason, like if things would have broke their way, could have, they could have made it.
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of riders like that, right? There's a
Doesn't
lot
have to be just one. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm trying to think
you
about like
some
the
names,
first one to talk about. I mean, there was a lot of guys that had really good style and that could have been something, but it was just like they didn't have what it took, I think, to like really push to the next level. Like Rob Jakes is probably a good example of that. So, insanely good style. He made stuff look really good. He was like one of the first. He like got signed on Slingshot in the beginning, and he was like supposed to be like the flagship, like future of Slingshot, and he kind of just got signed, got a paycheck, and then got a girlfriend, and just kind of. I saw that a lot, right? Like the girlfriend thing. Not that it like unmotivates people, but it'll throw a wrench.
You just need a chick who shreds. Just get a wakeboard.
Yeah, well, that didn't really exist. It exists a lot more nowadays, but honestly, like 10 years
tough.
ago, like there wasn't a lot of girls wakeboarding.
Yeah.
You go to the Kale Park, there was no girls. Like you'd be there all day, and like you see a girl, like, holy shit, there's a girl here, guys, get ready, we got one girl. Now you go to the Kale Park, there's a lot of girls there, so that's cool. But yeah, I think, I don't know, I guess the best way to look at it is I worked with a lot of riders who were kind of like, they were already very relevant because that was kind of like my job, right? So I didn't really get to work with a lot of riders who weren't.
Yeah.
I would obviously see like people come and go. I mean, big shout out to Bob Stitchell. Bob Stitchell was an absolute
huge
legend.
shout out to Bob Stitchell.
No, a huge shout out to Bob Stitchell. He was, I would say Bob, I posted this about recently with everything that he's got going on, but I said every single time I filmed with Bob, he was always happy. He was always respectful. He was one of the greatest guys to work with because he might not have ever got like the attention that he deserved or if he could have got, but like he was always just down. If I called Bob, I'm like, hey Bob, can you drive Chase? He'd be like, yeah, no problem. He would drive Chase all day. And they'd be like, hey, can I get a ride? I'm like, yeah, dude, like we'll get you in there. But he'd go out and pull Chase. He would drive for, Rusty, for Parks or Danny. And it was funny because like, yeah, he's driving these boats for these huge guys that are making, 6 figures a year wakeboarding, but like he's not getting no love from nobody. And it's hard. It's hard. It's like you feel bad for like those riders that get in those situations, but it's it's just like kind of that dog eat dog world. And like we
Sometimes
said,
the way
it's
of the world. Yeah.
yeah, and again, like Bob killed it. I mean, I guess if you really go way back, I mean, I think Ben Greenwood was one of my favorite riders to watch. Insane style. Like if I still see him today, I'll be like, I remember that. What's that? I think it was one of the League of Force movies where his part, just natural, good, just a good old guy. Always loved like off the water too. But yeah, I mean.
There's some good names. I mean,
Yeah.
Bob Sigel. Bob Sigel to me is the one. Obviously, the GoFundMe link will be in the description. Obviously, he's going through some tough times right now, but we got Bob's back. His edits stand the test of time. Some of the stuff he has,
Style
much better than the big name riders at the same era.
I got some banger edits of Bob out there for sure on Vimeo.
Yeah. That's what I'm referring to. It's. I'll link a few below because they are very much so worth a watch. Like, his creativity style, like he's just. I mean, yeah.
No, he was always down to like do weird stuff. He's like, I want to take a tube and put a little rail on top of it, and I'm gonna dink it or I'm gonna donk it, or whatever. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Whereas other riders would look at it and be like, why?
Yeah, other riders like, I'll just go do my PWT run. I'm like, why? But I think he was also he had a little bit of influence from the West Coast. Bob did.
Yeah, exactly.
I think he had some Randall in him. He'd like kind of. He looked at Randall as kind of like a way to get some style off that.
We like that. All right, Slingshot.
The Slingshot.
Let's hit it up. So, like, how do you get involved? Obviously, you said you're tight with Jeff. Like, what's the whole
situation? The Slingshot story for dummies. So basically, I worked for Alliance at the time, and then Jeff obviously worked at Alliance too. He was like, I don't really know what his title was, but he did kind of like producer type stuff and just kind of working with brands. And it was always kind of funny because obviously Jeff was sponsored, but then he was also like working for a magazine. Yeah, and then like kind of like I don't know, like again, kind of a weird situation because like he's sponsored, so it's like who's going to get the most coverage in the magazine? Like probably his sponsors, So that was kind of weird. But so once we kind of had a falling out with Alliance because it got to a point where I was doing other stuff. Like I was doing more like Slingshot stuff than I wanted to do like with Alliance stuff. And that's when we went down to CWC. We went down to CWC and filmed a video with like Daniel Grant and just like all the cable rats back in the day. Yeah. And it was an insane video. And Alliance was all butthurt because they wanted like credit. They were like, "Oh, you're our employee." I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm not like a full. I'm not a full-time employee. Like I'm a contractor, so I don't owe you. If I make a movie, I don't have to put your name on it. So they wanted like credit, and they wanted me to only put it on their website. And there was this whole falling out with Bill McCaffrey at the time, and at that point I was just over it. I was over working for Bill. I was over just working for them in general because I just felt like, again, like I was going places and they weren't, and I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and I was like. I kind of saw that I didn't have a future. Like what was I gonna do? Like I was gonna be either a top filmer.
Where do you fit in?
Yeah, I'm the top filmer at Alliance. So like, there really wasn't much for me there. So it was. I still remember being at Surf Expo and me and Bill we sat down and we talked, and I was like, I'm leaving. I'm done. He's like, well, if you leave, you're never gonna get a job anywhere else. Like you're blacklisted. And I said, okay, good luck. And then that same day, I called the team manager at the time, Wade Wagley, and I was like, hey. Alliance said I'm blacklisted. So do I still have a job at Slingshot? He's like, yeah, you're good. I'm like, all right, sick. So I told him, I was like, I need a salary because I can't just like live off of like, making videos and getting paid once a month off of one video. So I need like a salary. So Slingshot put me on salary. And then I was filming basically like all their product videos. Every time a new board come out, go to the factory, spent a lot of time in Hood River. I feel like I had a lot more like behind the scenes going on at Slingshot than a lot of people knew because I was there with Jeff, right? Like I would go to Jeff to the office in Hood River, and I would be like a part of like design meetings, and like we would look at go to the factory and look at boards, and they would show like I'd be filming all that. So like maybe I wasn't like putting two together, but I was like kind of like in that little circle and like seeing like, oh, we're doing this new design with this board with this rocker, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, and I would kind of see all that going on. And I was like, that was a really cool time to be alive because that was the first time that I was like working directly with one brand. So I had this like dream of like, oh, I want to be this Slingshot guy. I want to make the best videos, and it's all going to be Slingshot, and we're gonna push the envelope, right? We're gonna make something that no one else is making because we looked at what like Kilgus was doing, we looked at like what Liquid Force was doing, and I was like, that's not really like what I want to do. Again, because of the wake skating, right? Like, I think the wake skating again kind of it always influenced me, and I wanted to like get crazy and do weird stuff, and Slingshot was that, right? Slingshot was the misfits of the industry. Slingshot was like
on the scene.
Yeah, the new kids, something to prove, right? You need like I tell people all the time, like, you need something to prove, right? Like, what's your drive in life if you don't have something to prove? Right? Like, you need something. You need to wake up in the morning and be like, I'm ready today to, like, prove it. And that's what Slingshot really was. It was like, we want to make these badass wooden boards, and we want to push wakeboarding into, like, kind of a new direction. We want to get away from the PWT. We want to go cable parks. We want to go rails. And I always believed that cable parks were the future of wakeboarding because, again, it's like not everybody can buy a boat. $200,000 for a nautique to go out and do a couple tricks behind it, or I can go to the wakeboarding park, hang out with other people, have a community, and that's what cable parks end up being, right? You get the community. So that was Slingshot. Like I felt like when we first started with Slingshot, like we were just on this like kind of like team together. Like I felt like I was like a part of the team. I felt like I was, like I was bleeding. I was like, I'll risk my life. I'll bleed for Slingshot, and it was weird because I don't know why I felt that way, but I felt that. Like, I was like, I'm going to die for Slingshot. Because I was like, I have a mission. I want to prove that, we are the coolest. We are the best. We're going to do some badass stuff. And that's when we started filming stuff. And then we started kind of filming. That's when Shredtown. So Shredtown got signed to Slingshot, like, I think it was like maybe a year or two after, like, I started with them. And it was like.
That had to be exciting.
Dude, right off the bat, man. Right off the bat, it was just like instant. I was friends. Like, Andrew and me, we were just like little butt buddies. Like, it was funny. Like, we were friends. I don't know why, but we just became friends. And like, we talked every single day. It was funny because he actually messaged me on Facebook way back before all that. And he was messaging me about video stuff. He's like, hey, what video encoder? And we were talking on Facebook before he was like sponsored by Slingshot. And then once they got on Slingshot, it was just like, oh, we're best friends. We're going to hang out. We're going to film all the time. And I spent a lot of time with Shredtown. I spent a lot of time in Texas. Andy, which is Andrew's dad, at one point, like, really kind of had a good relationship with like his family and was really intertwined in that whole like Shredtown world. And the Slingshot thing just kind of, I think it really kind of put me into a good spot in the sense of like I had like full creativity, like full control. Like there was no producer.
They gave you the keys kind of.
Yeah, they were just like, Patrick, film it. Film cool stuff. And at the time I had a, I think it was like a 60D, like a little, like, it wasn't a 5D. It was like the cheaper version of the 5D. Okay. And that's what I was filming with, man. It was like, one of these little like cameras, and that's what I was filming. You got Kilgus with his gimbal and this whole rig. And I'm over here with my little 5D, and honestly, we were killing it. It was fun. We had the van, not the van, but this like camper. Shredtown had a camper.
Oh yeah.
Dude. We would just drive around. It smelled so bad, and it was just full of crap. And we would just drive around doing winching and just filming. And Lipsmack was definitely like one of the coolest projects because nobody was really like rich off of wakeboarding, right? Like everybody was just kind of like barely making it. But like we all had a goal of like we want to make a sick video that gets people hyped. And I remember like that was just like that year or year and a half when we filmed Lipsmack was fun because I didn't care about money. I didn't care about like buying crazy cars or doing anything. Like it was just like I wanted to film.
Well, you were on salary from Slingshot, right? So you didn't have to worry about paying the bills.
No, really. I was still broke. Trust me, I was still broke. Because I would spend all my money on camera gear.
You're just all in. Yeah.
Yeah, like if at the end of the month I would have less, I wouldn't have enough money. And at the time there was a woman at Slingshot, Tina, and I would like email her and be like, hey Tina, I know I don't get paid on the 1st, but is there any way that you can pay me on the 25th? Because, I'm out of money. Yeah. And she would sometimes. Like, honestly, like, I was very, like, I was lucky. Like, I tell people, like, I was kind of in the right place at the right time. It was a good crew, man. It was, like, it was fun. It was, you go to Slingshot, you go to the factory, you go to the office, everybody was, like, about it. After work, we'd all go get beers and get drunk and party. And, like, we had just this whole, like, culture of just people having fun and wanting to film.
About it.
And do it, yeah. So the Shredtown thing, I mean, that was like, I feel like it really put us all on the map, right? So Shredtown came out, and it was just like, what are these guys doing? They're winching in their backyard, just hitting like weird stuff, and like nobody was doing that. No,
well, that's what Jeff said. Jeff was like, everybody's in Florida, kind of doing the same, kind of similar thing, and these guys in Texas, just out of nowhere, it's just like doing the coolest shit. It took over. I mean,
everybody talked about Shredtown. That was all people talked about, and the people in Orlando were like, fuck, like. They started trying to do shit, Henshaw was trying to build a rail in his backyard, kind of like, like Shredtown. It was like, it really motivated everybody to
competition,
be like,
right?
Yeah, because now you have people that are doing stuff that no one else is doing, and they're getting all the publicity, they're getting all the love, and it's like, well, my PWT run ain't gonna get me no more coverage because all the people want to see is Shredtown.
which rightfully
Yeah.
so. That shit was fucking cool, man. They were doing
insane.
some crazy stuff.
It was so much fun, and it was just a good time, and everybody was, like I said, everyone was motivated. We obviously fought, and we would, want to kill each other, and we spent all this time together. And I remember, Chris Abity and Davis Griffin. Davis was always like the mom. He was always like the caring, like nurturing one, and then Chris was kind of the gnarly, like I'm gonna go fucking jump off a huge waterfall.
You could see it in his writing.
Yeah, and then Andrew was like, he was kind of like just a little bit more reserved. I think Andrew, he was really hard on himself because he felt like he wasn't up to the level of like being a pro like wakeboarder, right? And he put a lot of like, he was hard on himself about that. And I always tell him like, bro, people don't want to see you do a 1080. They don't want to see you do like a crazy trick. They just want to see you do like a sick little cool video, like, and that was always hard to like get across to him, which is funny because you had the guys that were doing 1080s looking at them going, wow, that's so sick, But then Andrew's sitting there going, man, I suck. He was always hard on himself, so hard on himself. And I wish like going back that like we could have like really tried to like push him to not be so hard on himself.
Well, it's crazy too because he was doing so much filming and editing too. So it's like you're not just a wakeboarder, right?
Exactly.
Like,
but that was also his excuse, right, to why he wasn't good. He'd be like, oh, I filmed too much. I don't. Chris does all the big tricks.
he was still good though.
Yeah, he was
really
good.
damn good. Like,
but that was the thing. Like people watched Shredtown not because they were good. They watched them because they were like, it was relatable. Right?
Well,
like,
and they were creative.
And it was creative, right? And it was something you could do with your friends. Like if you had 4 friends, you're like, dude, we can have a winch. We can go out in our backyard and build some janky rail. We can do something weird.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why people loved it. Like everybody wanted to be a part of the Shredtown thing because it was like relatable.
Yeah.
Whereas somebody go out and doing 1080s off a double up, you're like, I'm gonna kill myself.
Yeah.
Or like watching Shredtown, you're like, oh, I could maybe hit a rail.
It looks fun.
Yeah.
That looks fun.
And it was just like I said, like I think people really gravitated because it was like you wanted to be a part of something.
Yeah.
Right. The community of it. And Shredtown was like this community, like online. And that's like we started seeing people all over the world. People in Germany, people in other places, like getting winches and hitting janky looking stuff. And you're like, oh, it's sick. Look, there's like a
catching on.
There's a Shredtown in Germany now. There's a Shredtown in Asia. Like we all went to CWC together, and like everybody, every single person was like Shredtown, Chris Abity, Andrew, Davis. Like they were the stars at CWC.
Yeah.
Even Daniel Grant, one of the craziest, cable riders ever. He was fanboying out on Shredtown. Yeah. And again, like they weren't doing crazy tricks. They were like, it was nothing that they were doing was like crazy, right? Like in the sense of like, they weren't doing insanely technical, hard tricks, but they were doing it in a way that made it look fun and people loved it and they wanted to watch. And it was, again, I think it was really the first time you had like these 3 kids out of nowhere that just kind of came together and did something cool.
It's power of a crew too. Like they were creative. Do you think they could have racked up some more sponsors than they did? Like paycheck wise, or do you think?
See, what does that go back to, right?
Yeah.
It all goes back to the issue of Jeff McKee. All right, and you look at me like you might be confused here, but the problem is Jeff McKee didn't want anyone to outshine Jeff McKee, and it was always like that on Slingshot. So like I would always joke, I'm like, Jeff, we need like a better wake surfer. Why do Slingshot makes sick wake surfboards, but we don't have a wake surfer on the team? Like, let's go get like a sick. We had like Chase Hazen was a really sick wake surfer back in the day. And you could get a wake surfer for like, I don't know, $300 a month, like on like the team.
Send them a couple boards.
Yeah, give them a couple boards. They're sponsored by Slingshot. But like McKee was like, nah, I'm the wake surfer. I can wake surf. I can do that. And same thing behind the boat. McKee was pretty much like the best wake rider on Slingshot. Because if you look through Slingshot, there hasn't really been a lot of like good wake riders. Yeah, Jeff House, but like Jeff House was always hurt. And it was just like, think about it. Like who was like a good wake rider? Oliver Jerome.
Ollie Jerome.
Big
name. Yeah, he's a big guy.
But again, like he wasn't going to outshadow McKee, right? It was kind of like McKee wanted to keep that title, and that's why he's still there, because he kind of just keeps that title, like doesn't really want other people to come in and outshine him, which I think that was always the issue for Slingshot. Like
they did pick up Tony Iacone a couple years ago, but that didn't last very long.
Tony Iacone. Great kid. Great, not good style, but it's all good. But that was the thing with Slingshot, right? Is you had McKee that was basically kind of behind the scenes, kind of running stuff, and I think he kind of like he wasn't motivated to help these guys more than he already was. Okay. I know that sounds weird, but like that's how I saw it from where I was at, and because I'd be like, why don't let's get Rockstar.
I was gonna say like it seems like these guys would at least Chris for sure.
Yeah, let's get them more sponsors, but it was they just didn't have that connection because you needed somebody in your like.
It's tough to break in.
Like I said, you needed somebody. The same thing with like Core Murata with Randall. You need somebody in your corner.
Yeah.
right? Because like Shredtown can't go and like
You
talk
can't go
to
direct to
Rockstar.
Rockstar.
Yeah, like
I mean, maybe you could, but it'd be very hard.
Yeah,
Like,
it's funny because McKee was like good friends with Dishman, who was good friends with Rockstar. So that's why the Jamboree got sponsored by Rockstar at one point, but there was never a Shredtown deal with Rockstar.
yeah.
So kind of interesting. And then again, it's like I think the way that they went about like the pro model boards and the boots, and there could have been just a better way of going about things in terms of like just a better way of doing it, I guess, business wise, to like help out Shredtown and kind of make it more viable. Because again, there's that smoke and mirrors, the sense of like, how did Andrew have a lake house? How did he have a ranch? It wasn't because of Slingshot. It wasn't because of wakeboarding. His dad gave him the tools to do that, and not hating on that at all. I love Andrew.
You take the opportunities you have.
Yeah,
in front
you
of
take the opportunities, but at the same time, it's like that wouldn't exist without Andrew's dad, right? And that was like kind of like Slingshot rode that like kind of like, we can just we don't need to give them more money because Andrew's dad's just going to pay for more stuff, So I think that was kind of like a little bit of a thing, and that was mostly every sport, like every rider in the sport, like the guys who lived had a big lake house with a boat in their backyard. I was like, that ain't from sponsorship money,
Yeah.
And that was kind of the funny. I think that's like the wakeboarding kind of cycle, right? You go from like being a kid where your parents pay for you to go to a coach to become a pro wakeboarder, and then your parents buy you a boat, and then you get sponsored for $500 a month, and then you grow out of wakeboarding, and then you become a coach, and then you teach other kids how to wakeboard, and then it's just like a cycle, right? Just the big cycle. That's the cycle. It is. Like, think about it. Like, how many wakeboarders become coaches? Like, a lot of them.
A lot.
Because that's the only way to make money.
Oh, even like current pros. Like
Yeah.
Thomas Herman, a current pro, is
Yeah.
like still coaches.
You
which,
got to.
Which even if you don't need to, it's smart. I mean, it's really good money too.
It's
right?
you got to make money. I get it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just like that's the industry. The industry is built on smoke and mirrors, with basically a bunch of parents paying for kids to be professional riders.
You have to be pretty well off to get into definitely the boat side of things. I mean, there are ways where it's like clubs and stuff, but it's very rare.
It's hard.
Yeah,
it's really hard. So the Shredtown thing was, I think, it was also hard because you had 3 guys. Obviously, they were all friends, but it was like everybody's kind of like they're like everyone's kind of going in their own path, right? Like Chris kind of had a girlfriend, and then Davis kind of had his stuff, and I think Andrew just got really down on himself at a certain point, and he was kind of just over it because he just saw it like, I'm never gonna be good. I'm never gonna like
Andrew. If you're ever watching, you were a fucking good wakeboarder, dude.
I know, but that's what he thought. Like we would talk about it all the time. He's like, I fucking suck. Like he would be we'd go to a winch spot, and he would try one trick, and he'd stop. I'm done. I can't. I suck. I'm like, well, you're not gonna ever land it if you say you suck.
Yeah.
100. That ain't gonna happen. Where Chris was just like, he was naturally just gifted in the sense of like his athletic ability, right? Like he could just spin, he could just jump, he had these. I always joke, I'm like, this dude just had legs, he would do like
he had that wide stance.
Yeah, yeah, that stance. He would land, and it would just be like, how did he just jump down 30 feet and just land? Like how did his legs not break?
I'm picturing so many clips of him. It's just like, wow, how did you ride away from that shit?
Yeah, and then Davis knew that he wasn't good, right? Or like he
did some crazy stuff too.
But he knew that he wasn't gonna be like this insane wakeboarder, but he had fun with it. Like he just laughed about it. He would just like. He would be like, we get to a spot, and Davis would always be the one like, yeah, I'll do that trick. Just kind of like, oh, it'll be fun to do that trick. Like I'm not going to try to do something crazy, but I'll do this trick because it'll be like a fun, cool trick.
Creative, different.
Yeah, I'll be creative. I'll do like a weird little tap on it or something. And that was always Davis's kind of thing, where Chris was like, I'm going to go big and just fucking.
Well, and that's why I think the crew was caught on so well, because you have Chris who does the crazy shit. You have Davis, who is, creative, unique. And then I think Andrew almost like fell somewhere in between that, where it's like Andrew was doing hard stuff, but it obviously wasn't maybe to the level Chris was doing, but it was a little bit different than what Davis was doing. It was a very good mix, I thought.
The simplest way to think about it is none of them would have existed without the others, right? Chris wouldn't have existed without Andrew. Andrew wouldn't have existed without Chris and Davis. They needed the three of each, because you need someone to film. You need someone to drive the winch.
And they started with jet ski too, so you need film, jet ski, rider.
So that was the thing. Like they needed the three of each. They needed each other. Yeah. Right. It was funny because like I spent so much freaking time with these idiots, and we would go we'd go to go eat lunch or whatever, and Chris would be like sitting there, and I'm like, what's wrong with you? He says, I don't have any money. I'm like, oh fuck, and I didn't have any money, but I would end up having to buy Chris lunch, because like I was like, well, I'm gonna buy this kid lunch because he ain't got money, so well, whatever. But it was just a funny a fun time to be alive and just experience the world. We traveled together.
A lot of travel.
Went to the Philippines, went to Germany, went to all these different places. And, you know, you go all over the world and you're like a rock star. Like we talked about earlier, going to Wake the Line. You know, go to Wake the Line and everyone's like, you get a VIP pass and you're walking around like, oh, you're Red Bull. You know, you go to a party at night, everyone's fucking partying, drinking. I remember the best is, so we went out, partied. Sean Watson was there. So I would always party with Sean. And every time I'd party with Sean, he would always steal my girl. He would steal everyone's girl, by the way. He's an asshole like that. He knows it.
Okay, was he stealing or was this just
No,
Sean
he would
Watson?
steal.
Oh, thief.
No, what he would do is he would just look at him.
Oh, okay, that's not stealing.
No,
then.
I'm telling you.
That's just Sean Watson
I
being
swear
Sean
to God,
Watson, dude.
I'm at a bar one time in Germany, and I'm already drunk. I'm talking to these 3 girls. I probably had no chance, but I was talking to these 3 girls, and I see Sean across the bar, and he starts walking over, and I'm like, no, get away. Don't come over here. And he's like, he always has this like grin. He doesn't really have to say anything. I always laugh because he'd walk up and he'd just stand there and he would just grin. And the girls would be like, oh, who are you? And I'm like, I told the girls, I'm like, don't look at him. Don't look at his eyes.
You'll
Don't
turn
look at his
to stone.
eyes. You're going to have sex with him. If you look at his eyes, don't do it. And I swear to God, in Germany, this girl looked at his eyes. Next morning, I see her living in his room. I'm like, I knew it. But that, you know, that was such a cool time too, with traveling the world with all these different guys. Cause you get a wakeboard all day, you get a party all night, do it all over again. That was the same night that I got so drunk. I went back after Wake the Line. I got butt ass naked. And then I just went to bed. I'm sharing the room with Garrett Cortez. So Garrett's in one bed and I'm in the other bed. Obviously we were in the same bed, but 2 different beds. But I'm on top of the covers, just butt ass naked, just passed out. And he wakes up and Garrett freaks the fuck out. He had a freak out. Like he was really worried. He's like, what?
Oh, like thought you were dead or something?
No, he thought I was like, he's like, why are you naked?
Oh.
Why are you naked for? I'm like, I don't know. I got drunk and I got naked. I was still drunk at that point. It was like 3 a.m. He wakes up at 5 and I'm like still drunk. And he's so upset that I'm naked in the room with him. And I'm like, what's the issue, bro? I didn't touch you. I went to sleep. I forgot to put clothes on. I don't know. And I remember like going down to breakfast and everyone's like, I heard you got naked last night with Garrett. I'm like, what? I didn't get naked with Garrett. I just came back and fell asleep naked, you know? Those are my favorite stories, right? Just like all those little moments. Just like Garrett just being freaking out because I'm butt ass naked on the bed.
Shit happens, man.
Yeah,
you know?
it's good
All
times.
right, let's talk Lipsmack because you know Slingshot came on the scene. They had their new boards, blah blah blah. Get a team. Run through the whole story of the movie being proposed, the budget behind it, everything like involved.
The budget,
Dude. Everything involved with Lipsmack.
Yeah.
This was your thing.
We did a trip. Where did we do? I think we did a trip somewhere. I forgot where we went. We did a trip for something, and we filmed a bunch of stuff. And then I was like, dude, we got a lot of really cool footage. I think I can't be 100% sure. I think we went to Knoxville. We went to Tennessee, and we filmed some stuff. And we were like, dude, we could make like a movie. You know, like why not make a movie? And Wade Wagley at the time, he was the team manager before McKee was. And at the time, we were like, yeah, let's film a movie. And Slingshot was like, they're like, we got like a $5,000 budget. That's our budget. We got like a $5,000 budget to make this movie. I'm like, bro, $5,000? But we did it, you know. But I was already on salary too, so it's kind of like you're on salary. You're gonna still film all the product videos. Yeah, you're gonna film the product videos. You're gonna do all that, but then like we'll give you an extra $5,000 to like make a movie. Yeah. And I was like, at the time, like, oh, let's go. I'm gonna make a movie, and that's what we kind of did. We kind of were smart about it in the sense of like we needed to film product videos, so we were like, okay, we'll film the product videos, but then we'll also film for Lipsmack while we're on this trip. So we would film the product videos because we had the budget to like certain amount of money to like go on a trip to do a product video. Yeah. And so we'd go film the new products, new boots or whatever it was. And then after that, we were just game on Lipsmack. And then as that grew, Slingshot was kind of like, oh shit, you know, like this is after we had like kind of half the movie filmed, it was like, all right, like this is kind of a real thing.
They're
so like,
doing this
let's really do it now. So then they put a little bit more money up for it. And I mean, it was all just like a shoestring budget. I mean, there was no like, I don't know. It was very just, you know, we just made it happen.
It was you were double dipping a lot. With trips
exactly.
And stuff,
we were smart about it. We were smart about it, and that's you had to be. And you know, we had Brian Reeder, we had Nate Perry, we had Ollie. I mean, Ollie just kind of came on the team right then, which we kind of needed that, right? Like Ollie was very important for that because we needed someone on the boat.
Established kind of big name boat.
We needed the boat. Like we had nobody on the boat. Like we had House, but he is, like I said, he got hurt, and then it was just like you can't really do much because you know.
Ollie's going to the PWTs. He's doing all the big contests.
Exactly. He was the biggest name at Slingshot at the time. Yeah. You know, when we had Ollie come on, and it was funny because I was good friends with Ollie at the projects, so I had already known Oliver at the projects, and And we had like a good little kind of relationship. I still feel like we have a pretty good relationship. Just kind of like back and forth, kind of joking and stuff. You know, obviously we've all kind of moved on in our lives, but he was always like very down, right? He wanted to film. He wanted to push himself. He wanted to make movies. He wanted to like kind of prove to people that he was good, which obviously he was really good, but I think he had a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah.
Right. Like he really wanted to like prove to the wakeboarding world that he could land, you know, big tricks that no one's ever done, do double flips, do the 1080s and all that. So he really pushed, you know, the wakeboarding side. And then it was funny because we had Dylan Miller.
Yeah.
So Dylan
was say Dylan,
yeah, Dylan was like
he had to be new too.
Yeah, he was kind of new to the team too. It was kind of like a funny time because we had like Dylan, you had Ollie, and it was even funnier because before all that happened, there was a moment. There was a very fleeting moment where Steele Lafferty and Raph were almost going to sign with Slingshot.
I did talk about Jeff with this.
Yeah. So I remember like telling Wade, I'm like, dude, fire everybody, get Raph and Steele, and it'll be the most insane thing ever, right? Like, and I still think it could have been. I really think that it would have like put Slingshot on the map, right? Because it would have been like, holy shit, you got Raph to Rome, you got Steele. But then the question is like, maybe it all wouldn't have played out. But either way, it would have been cool. So we had Ollie, and I think Ollie kind of knew that Slingshot wanted Raph in the beginning, right? Like they knew that. So Ollie came onto the team, and it's kind of like, oh fuck, they wanted my brother before me, right? Like Raph at the time, like he was untouchable, right? Like everyone was like, oh my, like he was scary how good he was.
Yeah.
And I filmed with Raph, you know, not a lot of times, but I did spend time with Raph and his brother a lot, and Raph, he was a different creature. I mean, he's still a different creature. He's just like, he's very like he's like a surgeon. Yeah, when it comes to,
good way to put it.
You know, like he like sees a rail and he's like, I'm gonna do this, but then I'm gonna be like right here, and it's like,
and it's gonna be perfect.
Yeah, it's gonna be perfect. So that was kind of like the Lipsmack. We had Ollie. Obviously, Jeff was trying to do some tricks too, but you know, again, like kind of.
Hey, to Jeff's credit, he did the whoop shit. The whoop.
Yeah, he did the whoop shit. I know, and
that went viral.
I know he wants to talk so much shit about that, but that was all my idea, by the way. I used to watch snowboarding videos religiously.
Truth of the whoop.
Yeah. And on his podcast where he said I was an editor, I fucking did everything for Lipsmack. I filmed, I edited. It was all every single thing was my idea, like literally top to bottom. I don't care what anyone says. Like I lived and breathed. You can ask any writer at the time.
I think Jeff would say that.
I watched a podcast where he's like, yeah, he did some editing. No, he said that on the podcast. I swear to God.
I feel like
that's why I'm here right now.
I think he'd give you full credit.
No, he won't. Fuck him. But like I said, Jeff was not original. He was not creative. It was all. It sounds funny to say this, but like me and Andrew really were like when it came to the Shredtown stuff. Like obviously, me and Andrew were the ones who were coming up with stuff. McKee was always kooky. Like he's always been kooky. He's still kooky, and that was like his writing was like that, and like. He found ways to like make himself relevant with the rails. He was like, oh, I can do a flip off the end. And it was like, oh, okay, do the flip off the end, McKee. But it was like, that was his little thing.
Hey, McKee has good style. You can't say McKee doesn't have good style.
Hey, I filmed McKee for a really long time.
He's got good style
on wakeboarding, but he's a kook all day. And that's the truth. But yeah, that was, Lipsmack was like that, right? Like I spent a lot of time with McKee. So we had a lot of fights. We had a lot of issues. Me and him would fight about stuff because he'd get mad because of whatever. Like, you know, I think Quinn kind of touched on this, but people kind of took my passion the wrong way, right? So like when we went to Valdosta and we were filming for Lipsmack and Quinn was there and he was riding, and like I didn't really want to film Quinn because I didn't really see where he fit in the movie. I didn't really see. Like no offense to him, but like I just wasn't a big fan of his style. It's just like in my eyes, like I saw Raph as like that's the holy grail, right? So like it was hard for me because I really wanted to film Raph. I wanted to film like the best guys. I thought that my filming was like really high quality, so I wanted to film really high quality riders. Like I was kind of like I wanted like kind of that Curtis Morgan type vibe where I was filming with the best riders because I felt like I was the best filmer. And that might be wrong to say now, and I feel bad. Maybe I could have been better about like kind of filming riders, but I was kind of jaded, right? Like I was like, I'm not fucking filming some random kid in Valdosta. I don't know who. Like, why am I going to film this guy? Like that's why I looked at it because I was like, I'm not going to use the footage. And that, you know, that might be wrong to like think that way, but that was just kind of the way I looked at it. You know, I was like, I think I was just like in my head, I was like, I'm not going to use this footage.
I could see how that would rub some people the wrong way.
Yeah, it did. It rubbed a lot of people wrong. But I also like, I would push like even Shredtown, like I would push those assholes. I'd be like, hey, we need to wake up and film like, you know, at sunrise because it's going to look so much better because I don't want to film in the middle of the day. And people didn't like, there's no point in hitting rails at sunrise. So I'm like, it's going to look so much better.
It's going to look so good.
You know, and that was the fight. Like I would fight with writers because I would be like, hey,
This is what's best for you.
yeah, this is what's best for you, but it's also going to make the movie that much better, right? Like I wanted the steam coming off. I wanted the sun. I wanted you hitting that rail, and then there'd be like in the background some steam and some sunrise. Like that's what
little dew droplets on top.
Like that was my vision, right? Like I always wanted to like push the level of my filming, and I put a lot of pressure on myself to film as best as I could, and like to get the shots and to really have the vision. And I think people took that the wrong way. Yeah. But then I think some people respected it because like, dude, Patrick gets it done. You know, like when he says he's gonna get something done, he gets it done, and it's not like there's not bullshit. Like, you know, we might fight, we might hate each other, but at the end of it all, we're gonna be like, damn, like that was worth it. You know. So that might, I think that's kind of like where people got rubbed wrong is, you know, I really just kind of, I had a very, very focused vision of what I wanted to do, right? Like I was like Art of Flight was like, it's funny because like to say Art of Flight, which is nothing like Lipsmack, but like in my head, that's
inspiration.
Like, yeah, like I wanted to like push the envelope, and I wanted the writing to like be where the filming was. Where the problem with Slingshot, a lot of times the writing wasn't where like it wasn't there. You know what I mean? Like we didn't have those big names. We didn't have the guys doing like never before seen tricks, and like it was just kind of like you had people. We had a lot of like, you know, good riders, but they weren't there. You know, like it wasn't the rafter row.
It's not rafter row.
Yeah, and that I guess maybe I was just mad that I never got a film rafter row.
That's fair. I think there's no better time than now to do a segment presented by Slingshot.
Ooh.
The Slingshot Silhouette Challenge.
Yeah.
So I do have to shout out Jeff McKee. He has helped with the podcast and helped with the show. So I am a big Jeff McKee fan. But you know, first we're gonna do two here, Patrick. And so what I've done here is I've blacked out the rider or the photo or the face, and I want you to guess who this is.
Oh God. Well, that would be me, sir.
And what's that?
It's my mugshot. God. Yes, this is a recent one actually. I got arrested for that.
Mugshots.com. We'll get into the mugshot. Okay, and then we got the second one here.
Another picture.
No, this is not you.
I know. Trust me, I know exactly who that is.
Who's that?
Jeff McKee.
That's a good grab right there.
I've seen his butthole that many times.
That's the Nomad right there.
Hell, I might have taken that.
The photo?
No, that video.
Oh, up from the
Okay. Or, well, something. I mean, I've filmed that exact angle a million times with McKee.
Wow, so you're 2 for 2 on that.
Yeah.
You're
well, I mean, that wasn't very hard.
2 for 2.
That wasn't very hard.
No, it wasn't supposed to be hard.
Mugshot.
It was supposed to be funny.
Here's a mugshot. And here's a picture of someone that you just talk trash about. Great lead up to that. You really set that up. You had this all planned out.
I tried to tee that one up. I pretty much just the whole podcast for this moment.
That is why the podcast host is so important, because you got to know where it's going, and you knew days ahead of time. I know exactly where this is going to go.
Months, maybe even a year ahead of time. I had this one planned.
Oh man!
All right, so thank you to Slingshot for that. Let's dive back into Lipsmack. I want to know who your favorite rider to shoot in this movie was, because there was a lot of people.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a couple parts. There was a lot of people.
The funniest is like I feel like we went to Germany. We filmed with Stefan Vollert and like those guys over in Germany. So it's like there was different trips that people stood out, right? Stefan was, when he first got the Slingshot, he came from, I forgot what brand. He came from like a very like cable.
I don't even know what he was on before.
It was like
Slingshot.
it was like Dominic Gers and all. They were on the same team. It was like some.
Was it Joby? Was he on Job?
It might have been Job. It was some maybe like very European company, and like they were very like European. Yeah. Like their vibe was like very just like it wasn't us.
Yeah.
So when he got the Slingshot, it was kind of like, all right, bro, like look at Shredtown, what they're doing, and like do that. You know, like we don't want air tricks. We need like some sick rail stuff. So it was cool to like kind of like see the different places that we go, because each place we go, there'd be like a rider that maybe wasn't on all the trips. So going to Germany, Stefan he barely spoke English at the time, honestly. Like it was like kind of like broken English. So, and it was funny because like he's German, and he's like very German about. He's like, I will do the tail press, and then I will do the the 180. I'm like, okay, perfect. Like it was very like I love Stefan at that time, and I don't know. I feel like we had like a little bit of a falling out, but yeah, Germany was fun with like Stefan and those guys. We had Manu Rupp.
Yeah.
And there's the whole little German crew over there, and we partied, and Germany was a trip. We loved Germany. But honestly, favorite rider out of the whole of the thing, if I think about it,
what's the name that sticks out?
I mean, probably Ollie.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say
He's got
all.
some. I rewatched it last night.
Yeah,
And he's got.
I mean,
some
it
heat.
sucks because I feel like Ollie definitely he wanted to be like even more like he wanted to be more a part of it, but it got hard because there was like kind of defined sections. Like Shredtown they had to have their own section,
Yeah.
right? Because it was like Ollie was really good at rails. Ollie was insane on rail. I mean, like people don't give him enough credit, but like him on a rail, like very.
He's one of the best all around riders.
Yeah, very 100% all day. Best all around riders, and I guarantee like even today he could get on a board and do every trick and still like kill it all day. And so Ollie definitely, because he, me and him really wanted to push his boat riding. I filmed him do thousands of double ups, thousands of double flips, attempts, and that was before he had ever landed one. So he wanted to land the first ever double flip for Lipsmack. Yeah. But it was funny because he never landed it for the movie. And then he went and landed it in a contest, like literally the week after we were done filming. And he was all like, "Can we put the clip from the contest in the movie?" I'm like, "We can't really."
Yeah, it does not.
But it was cool though because at least it's like that momentum, right? At least people got to know, like, hey, I'm watching a movie with the guy who just did a double flip. Sure. At least, so it was like there was hype around it. It was cool. I think either way, it was like, hey, you landed it. Yeah. McKee tried to double flip a few times and just got absolutely destroyed, but. Yeah, I mean, the double flip at the time was like, it was the holy grail. Everybody wanted to double flip. Yeah. And it was funny because like I feel like it wasn't, obviously like it's a hard trick, but it's not like technically as hard as like some of the other tricks. Like there's no handle pass. You're just like, you're hucking it, right? And you got to get the perfect double up. And we went, with McKee, we went to like Sean Murray's a couple times. We went to Rusty. We went to like everybody who's good at driving double ups to try to hit. It was like, okay, we'll go to this guy. No, we didn't do that. We'll go to this guy's house. And certain riders are like, they're like known for driving double ups. Like everyone's like, oh man, if you want a big old meaty double up, you get Rusty to drive you because it's gonna be gnarly. You're gonna get a 6 foot tall double up.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, Ollie all day. No, and again, his personality, always happy, always motivated.
He's a good guy.
He's the first one to be on the boat, first one to be filling up gas, first one to be getting everyone. He's making crepes in the fucking morning. Everyone else is fucking hungover, and Ollie's in there with an apron on making crepes. Like, you want some crepes? You want some crepes? I'm like, you little French. Me and Ollie had a great relationship because I could make fun of him so much about being French Canadian. Because I'd be like, oh, the worst Canadian? French Canadian. That's the worst Canadian. All the other Canadians are all right, but them French Canadians, you got to watch out for them.
Ollie Durham, the best though.
Yeah,
the best
overall for sure.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. I agree. He's got a lot of good clips in that. Let's talk under construction. That edit. You remember this?
Yeah.
So
that was fun.
There were some unique clips in this, and I'm kind of curious, like just everything about this edit because there's some like I think winch and 2.0 where you guys are going over each other, and just like kind of talk about that edit a little bit.
Yeah, that was. So I had just gotten. I don't know if I had just gotten him, but I think I had just gotten like a red camera. So I don't know if you watched that recently.
Yeah, I watched it.
It's got like the weird kind of sizing.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like our idea. Like we wanted to film like this very kind of like cinematic kind of filmed kind of like I guess cable edit in the sense, and then having Shredtown obviously makes it epic because you have this just canvas of making beautiful rails and just doing cool stuff. And that was one thing about Andrew. Andrew was always very detail oriented and like trying to make the rails look legit.
Which again,
right, like nobody thought about putting metal like side skirts to make it look like it's actually urban. And then we had that little like the quarter pipe or whatever you call that the ramp that was like a first. Nobody was really doing that. But yeah, and like in the stair, like coming down the stairs, that was just a fun, like very creative. Like we felt like we were skateboarders. The cool thing about at Shredtown as well is like you could get the angles that you wanted, right? Because like it was pretty shallow, so you could kind of set the tripod. Like I would be standing in water like this, like filming, and it would open up so many opportunities, like very skateboard vibes. Because that's the cool thing about skateboarding. Like you can film somebody hitting a rail or hitting skate, and you can put the camera wherever you want. Yeah. Where with wakeboarding, the issue has always been like, how do I get the camera somewhere where I can't get it? Yeah. And that's like that was always the issue. So yeah, the thing with under construction was like we really wanted to kind of create that kind of very cinematic vibe and film it. It wasn't about the tricks. It wasn't about the wakeboarding. It was more about just like the filming and like making this kind of like movie. Yeah. And that was fun. Yeah. I think I'm trying to think, was that before Drop the Gun?
I think, it had to be before Drop the Gun.
Yeah.
It had to be.
I don't know.
Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know the year. I think it was 2013. I think Drop the Gun was 2014, if I'm correct. All right, so let's talk leaving the wakeboard industry. Why'd you leave? How was it? What happened?
So
What'd you get into?
yeah. So basically, at that point, I think it was like almost 10 years of like working with Slingshot, you know, and then I'd been like 5 years before that, kind of like Alliance and then Slingshot. And it just got to, you know what, it got to a point where like I just outgrew the industry in the sense of like money, right? Like Slingshot just couldn't afford me to pay. They can't pay me $30,000 a month to like film for them. And it's funny because Jeff Lagos, the owner, CEO of Slingshot, he always like, when I first started filming for Slingshot, he would always make jokes like, yeah, like one day we're not gonna be able to afford you. That's what
really
he would
good.
say.
That's a really high compliment.
Yeah, like he would say, like literally the day that, like the first time I started hanging out with Jeff Lagos, he's like, oh yeah, he's gonna like be too big for us in the future, so we got to use him while we can. And I thought about that, like, what do you mean? Like, I'm like, you can pay me, like you got money, right? You can pay me, but yeah, it gets to a point where like, you know, the company just can't afford.
Make sense.
Yeah, they like, I can't pay Patrick $30,000 a month to film, you know, web edits for us and stuff, which is fine. And it got to that kind of point, and I think the whole like the falling out between me and McKee was always like really difficult because I remember when he got moved up to like brand manager, in my head I kind of was like, oh, I could be like the team manager.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, what are you talking about? I was like, oh, what are you good? He's like, I'm gonna be the team manager and the brand manager. I was like, oh, but I could be the team manager. And he was like, kind of like, it was just like a weird falling out there. And then it kind of got weird too because I was doing a lot more kiteboarding stuff at the time. And so Slingshot, most people don't understand, but like Slingshot makes no money off wakeboarding. Like they never, the wakeboarding side of Slingshot has always lost money. Like there might be some years where they maybe broke even a little bit, but the majority of like the years, the kiteboarding is what really supplements.
Well, they're a kite company, right?
Yeah, that's where the money's at. It's just like how many wakeboards are you going to sell?
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, it's really hard to make money in the wakeboarding world. So the kiteboarding world really supplemented the wakeboarding. So at a certain point, Slingshot was like, hey, we need Patrick to film kiteboarding because like, you know, wakeboarding don't make us money. So we need the guy that we're paying all this money to go and film kiteboarding. So I was like, I'm down. So I actually started going to film kiteboarding, and I kind of like got big into filming kiteboarding. We filmed some really cool stuff, and it was funny because I kind of took the Shredtown vibe to the kiteboarding world, and we filmed some like really sick kiteboarding like rail edits and stuff. Yeah. And like I feel like we kind of put our mark on the kiteboarding world at one point, and I think it also helped because everybody in the kiteboarding world was like, wow, that's the guy that filmed Shredtown.
Okay,
right?
In
like,
the kiteboarding world, is wakeboarding viewed as like, oh, that's kind of cooler than kiteboarding, or is it?
Yeah,
not?
Yeah. It's funny, right? Like, so
okay.
A lot of the kiteboarders, they were like they wanted to be wakeboarders,
okay,
right? Like they like because kiteboarding is freaking, it's really kooky. Like most of the kiteboarders are super kooks. They're like, you know, they're out there in their vests and they got their little retractable stuff. I mean, majority of people who kiteboard, they're just mega kooks. So the people that wanted to be like the core kiteboarders, they wanted to be Shredtown. And like I remember we went to the Philippines with Shredtown, and there was kiteboarders there, and they were like, Shredtown, like they were like fanboys of Shredtown. So going into the kiteboarding world, it was funny because I felt like I had a lot of clout because of Shredtown, because of Lipsmack, because of the wakeboarding side. But it was like now looking back, it's like funny to think about. I'm like they didn't even know that the wakeboarding side didn't make money, right? Like the kiteboarders were getting paid way more than the wakeboarders.
Yeah.
But the kiteboarders were like, oh, I want to be a wakeboarder. It's like no, you don't, because you want $500 a month. You know, like I know some of the kiteboarders were getting like close to $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 a month on that side. Yeah, because there was guys who were world champions, and so Slingshot had like at one time they had one of the best kiteboarders in the world, right? So it's like, but Slingshot never had like the best wakeboarder in the world. So that's like they had a huge budget to pay for the best kiteboarder, but like there was no budget for wakeboarding.
Yeah,
I literally remember waking up and like I didn't have access. I think I got kicked out of like the Slingshot Instagram or something, and I was like, what the hell? Because I'm like trying to like post something, because I at one point I was like posting stuff on Slingshot Instagram and like kind of a whole part of that, and I woke up and I didn't have access anymore. I'm like, that's weird. So I called somebody, and then I called like Jeff Lagos. I'm like, hey, what the fuck's going on? Am I getting fired? And they're like, oh, well, we heard that you're in Hawaii, working with another brand. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, well, McKee said. I'm like, well, I'm not. So like stuff like that happened, and it just got to a point where I was like, I'm ready to move on with my life. So I mean, I look back at I think wakeboarding made me who I am in the sense of like I was forced to be a one-man band, right? Like I had to know how to edit, I had to know how to film, I know how to make content, I know how to make stories.
Feel that.
Right? Like that was like wakeboarding made me become that. Like you're doing all this by yourself. So like that's one thing a lot of people like if you go to college to become a filmer, right? You're not going to learn all the things that you need to do to like really be like to run a business, right? Where like with wakeboarding, like I had to manage the riders, I had to manage the like the locations, I had to help get like extra boats, like it was everything I had to learn and had to do. And wakeboarding forced me to like get very creative in that sense. And it was everything, right? Like I loved it. It was my passion for a very long time. And it was weird because when you're inside that bubble, that's all that exists, right? You think like, hey, if I leave wakeboarding, what am my life's over. And I dealt with that for like probably like 6 months, where when it was finally like when Slingshot stopped paying me, I was like, dude, like, like what's next? Like, what am I going to do next? You know, and now this whole, I've spent my entire life basically filming wakeboarding, and now it's gone. And it was hard because you lose all your friends, right? All these people that I used to travel with, all these people that I used to see every day,
Stop seeing them.
they're gone. There's no more parties. There's no more Red Bull. And it's funny because I actually got hired to go to Wake the Line after I stopped doing wakeboarding because they wanted me to film some drone stuff. So I went to Wake the Line and everyone was like, what are you doing here? Everyone was surprised. Like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I got hired for Wake the Line to film some drone stuff. So there was little crossover here and there. And I still talk to a lot of the guys, you know, from back in the day, like even like Danny Hampson, he lives down south. We talk, and, you know, Brian Grubb, just kind of like shout out to Brian Grubb for being the most like, I would say the best businessman in the like wakeboarding space. Cause you got to really like give him credit, right? Cause he has just stayed relevant.
Well,
for how long now?
And legitimately relevant, because the freaking base jump wake skate. I mean, that's
he,
good
like,
numbers, dude.
But that's what I love about him, right?
Can't
He
argue.
was at one point he was winning every wake skating contest, right? He could have just been like, nah, man, I'm a wake skater. I'm not foiling. But now he's foiling, and the dude is more famous than ever because he foils and he base jumps.
Yeah.
Nobody, you know, people don't even know that he's a wake skater. They're like, oh, that dude foils.
Yeah,
you know
what wake skating is, dude.
Yeah, but it's like that's what's so awesome about him is he has just like found a way to stay in the sport for this long. And I don't think anyone has anything bad to say about Grubb other than maybe, hey, he stole your girl a couple times, which fucking Grubb.
I'd like to
stole
see
my
a
girl.
kickflip, Grubb. Just saying. I'd like to see a kickflip.
Wake to wake?
Nah,
Double up?
Nah, you didn't got to do wake to wake. Just off the flats.
On the foil?
No, that's a no legal thing. I guarantee you,
Dude,
no legals.
that kid's a freak of nature. Yeah, no, I
backside
you
big
know,
spin on the
Noah lives down south by me. We kind of always chat, and he was in Hawaii when I was in Hawaii for a little bit, so we kind of hung out some stuff. But yeah, Noah's an actual freak of nature when it comes to, and I still remember his goofy ass on the cover of Sports Kids magazine, just no grab, just bad looking, but. His mom put him. They picked the worst. I remember when that magazine came out. The whole industry was like, "What a joke!" And it's like this poor kid is just on it.
Well, he didn't. Noah didn't choose it.
No,
he was a little kid.
But honestly, at the time, he didn't know what was cool anyway. He was a kid, right? So it was just hilarious because the whole industry was like butthurt about it. Like, oh, he's on the cover of that mag with his little hand up. Like, what's he doing? You know?
His fault, dude.
It's his fault.
All right. So, what'd you transition into after the 6 months? You know, of
Yeah. So after the darkness came the light. So basically, right after I was already kind of doing the YouTube. I started the YouTube like kind of like while I was still at Slingshot, and I think that also was like kind of a weird thing because it was like Patrick's like he's doing his own thing. He's filming he's filming for Slingshot, but he's also like making a YouTube now and like filming videos when he's on like these Slingshot trips. So it's kind of like this weird kind of, I don't know, thing going on. And I started the YouTube, and I don't really know why, but like I just thought like I could make a YouTube channel. I was already like, I knew that what was I good at, right? Like I was good at filming, I was good at editing, I was good at telling stories, I was good at like I don't want to say like making people famous, but like my whole job for 10 years was basically like making other people like more famous.
Giving them attention.
Yeah, like I filmed Raph's video when he got hired to Red Bull, or when he got put on Red Bull. Like I filmed the intro, his Red Bull debut video, I filmed it. So it was like, stuff like that. It was like I would film riders, they would get more sponsors, they'd make more money, they would do more stuff, they would get more, and then I would just be like, there's no equity. Like I have no equity, right? Like if Raph gets $1 million deal with Red Bull, like
you're not an agent, or you're getting,
and yeah, they're not paying me, and it's like, so I kind of saw that, and I was like, man, I gotta like start worrying about myself because I need to like build my own brand. So that's why I think the YouTube really allowed me to like create my own brand, to own it, and kind of just do whatever I wanted to do, right? So nobody could tell me what to do, and that's my favorite part about it is now I'm at a point where it's like starting a YouTube channel. I started YouTube, and it obviously like it doesn't take off quickly.
Yeah.
I had a girlfriend at the time, and she was like, what are you doing? Like, when are you gonna start a YouTube channel? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm gonna start a YouTube channel. And I started doing the YouTube, and it just like slowly, but slowly started like kind of a snowball, you know, and just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it got to a point where I was like $10 a day, $100 a day. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I'm making like 6 figures from YouTube. And I'm like, this is kind of crazy. So the whole YouTube thing was just next level.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like even today, like people still come up to me like, oh dude, Lipsmack. I remember you from Lipsmack. Like I remember you from the wakeboarding world. I saw a guy I swear to God the other day, he was like, oh, you're that wakeboard filmer. I was at the Panthers game. I swear to God, it was hilarious. I'm in the bathroom. This guy goes, you're the guy wakeboard filmer. I'm like, long time ago. He's like, no, I remember your videos. Yeah. I'm like, oh, sick, you know? So I think the wakeboarding stuff will always be there, but like the YouTube now obviously is like, it's my outlet. I can just do whatever I want on there. And I kind of got into the whole day trading stuff. I was always interested. Like you can probably like ask Shredtown, but I would always like make jokes with him. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna be a millionaire one day. Like I would tell Shredtown, I'm like, I'm gonna be a millionaire. And I'm like, they
were like, not in wakeboarding, you're not.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I thought like I could make money like as a production company. Right? I was like, I'm gonna be like a filmer, production, like Curtis Morgan. I'm gonna be producing the best movies, the best everything, and that'll be me, and I'll make $1 million. And yeah, obviously, it's not possible in the wakeboarding world, but yeah, it's I don't know. I think like I came from nothing, right? Like absolutely, like came from nothing. Like grew up working construction with my dad. My dad's got his own business, but I grew up working hard, grew up in Orlando. Wakeboarding was everything. And then now I look back and I don't even remember last time I thought about wakeboarding, you know?
Today.
Yeah, I thought about it today. Well, yeah, I was telling my girlfriend when we were over here, I'm like, I haven't even thought about wakeboarding in so long. But it's cool, man. It's so cool to, I feel like at least to like kind of leave your mark on something. And I feel like as much as some people will say, oh, blah, blah, blah about me, it's like I can still say like, well, I think I left my mark on wakeboarding forever, and I'm never going to be ashamed of that. I think we did a lot of really cool stuff, and you got to evolve, right? I think I look at people that are still like in the wakeboarding world. I'm like, bro, like, you still there? Like, you're still making the same money you were making 10 years ago? Like, at some point, you got to grow. You got to like expand your wings and fly. You know, like, do you really want to be stuck in the wakeboarding world forever? Like, just doing. These guys got a wakeboarding podcast.
At least staring me right in the eyes. Like, how long are you going to be here, bud?
No, I even told.
Till I die.
Hey, in my credit, though, I did tell you earlier. I'm like,
death.
this is such a cool thing for you because you're passionate about wakeboarding. You love wakeboarding. This is a cool project, cool podcast, you know, business that you're running here. And at some point, you're like, hey, you could get an offer from some big company. Like, hey, we want you to help us produce a podcast. But I mean, it'll happen, though. Like, think about me. Like, I started my YouTube channel. And then I got an offer from one of the biggest brokers in the world to like promote them and talk about them. And they're paying me millions of dollars to like, and I'm like, what do I know? You know, I'm just a YouTuber. But I started a platform. I had an audience, and that's where you're going, right? Yeah. You'll get to a point where like a company's gonna come along and be like, hey, we like what you're doing. We want you to help us do it, you know, on our way or this way. And that's the thing is like, if you're a filmer, you're a content creator, you're someone who's like creative, there will always be a way, right? There'll always be a way to make money. I've never had a real job. Like I worked at a country club when I was a kid, but like after that, it's just been nothing but filming, editing, and like hustling. Yeah. And it's just always going to work out.
Probably a lot more fun that way.
It is. I mean, I love it.
All right. Speaking of $1 million, we got a Patreon question from Robbie Houlihan. So everybody on Patreon,
I know Robbie Houlihan.
Thank you guys for supporting the podcast. Your guys' support is what keeps this podcast going. He wants to know, how the fuck did you get into day trading? I don't know what this means. What's the total IRR/portfolio level historical returns looking like? And
the IRR, bro, I'm a YouTuber. I'm not a fucking investment.
And what's the next wife and kids lock on the market? You got to explain this. I mean, you got to explain.
To be honlike, I don't even know what he's talking about.
What's IRR?
I mean, maybe like return on investment.
Okay.
Like, but like, I'm not like a long-term investor. Like, so I'm a day trader, right? And like, I go up and down, and it's not like I don't look at my last 6 years and go, okay, I'm up 5% in the last 6 years. I kind of look at it like I make money, I buy a Ferrari, and then I make more money and buy a Lambo. You know, it's kind of like, I know it sounds funny, but like, yeah, I'm not an investment professional by any means. Yeah. Like, and I don't ever claim that. Anybody who asks me about trading, I'm like, don't do it. Trading's a terrible idea. Like, it really is. Like, if you have an option between being a professional wakeboarder or being a trader, probably to skip both. But, you know, they're both rough.
Be a pro wakeboarder.
Pro wakeboarder for sure. Get your parents to buy you a boat. Don't worry, kids.
I mean, for real though, I guess, how'd you get into day trading at all?
No.
Where's the start of that?
So I moved to South Florida. I started dating this girl. It's always a girl, you know. Everything always starts with a girl. Everyone, if like, you know, it's just like at certain points in your life, you look back like, yep, that one girl. So I was dating this girl. Her dad had a bunch of money, and I was like, well, how does this guy get money? Well, you know, what's he do? And he's like, oh, I invest. And I'm like, huh. I grew up in Orlando, like country boy, and I didn't even know what stock. I never bought a stock before. I never had a broker, retirement account. My dad doesn't even have retirement. He's like 60-something years old, and he never bought a stock in his life. He's redneck, And so I moved to South Florida, and I saw people that had all the money, and I'm like, this is how do you get all this money? And that's where I kind of got the inspiration. I guess Wolf of Wall Street might have been a little bit of inspiration as well, like trying to get crazy, get out there and just do crazy stuff. I mean, and the funny thing is like with the whole trading stuff and about like all of it, it's never been about the money, right? It's never been about money. It's always been about the like freedom of it, right? Like I want to be able to do whatever I want to do any single day. And to be able to do that, you need money, obviously. Like you have to pay the bills. But like I don't sit there and go, okay, I want to have $5 million saved up so then I can, do this. I'm just like, I need to make. If I'm like, hey, I want to buy a Ferrari, okay, I need 300,000. I'm gonna go make that really quick. And I just look at it as like money as a way to have more experiences. Like I'm going to Hawaii next week for 2 months to go fishing every day with my son, and we're just gonna be like fishing and chilling and making money and doing that. So that's like the thing is it's the freedom.
Okay, I'm curious before we get more into that. When was the last time you did wakeboard or wake skate?
Yeah. You know what? It was. I saw
you foil.
Yeah. I saw some kids yesterday wake skating behind a aluminum john boat over on Lake. What was that? Lake Fairview. And I was like, fuck, I should yell at them. I'd be like, let me ride that. And I guarantee I could do a shove it first try, no problem.
Shove it feels good.
Yeah.
I did a shove it yesterday. It feels good.
Yeah, no, I love a good shove. Yeah. I rode at a cable park, probably like last year.
Really?
Dude,
Where?
Full pulls all day, bro.
Where'd you go?
OWC, come on.
No way.
Yeah. The best is I get to like the little the person at the dock or whatever. I get there and I'm acting like a full kook. I'm like, hey man, first timer. He's like, okay. He's like, put your boots on. I'm like, he's like, okay, sit down in the water. I'm like, nah, man, I'm gonna slide. He's like, no, I don't think you should slide, sir. I'm like, no, let me do it. I've got the rental vest on, the rental helmet. Yeah. I've got a slider. I rented a slider board, by the way. And I'm like, right off the dock, I just do a huge like tail wheelie out and just spray. And the guy's just like, what the fuck? Everyone on the dock is just like, who is this guy? Literally the first little rail. I'm like, wee, just slide across it. Come back to the dock. Guy's like, bro, that's not your first time. I'm like, nah, I'm just kidding, bro. I've been coming here since I was like 12 years old.
I'm a natural.
Yeah. I mean, my parents used to drop me off at ODUB. It was like a daycare. I was like, okay, we'll pick you up at 5. They close at 5, so don't leave the place. Let's stay here.
All right. So when you walked in, you mentioned the raft board. Yeah. You said you had a story on that.
Oh,
what's the story on that?
Best story with the raft board. We're in Texas, one of the cable parks. It's me, Raft Room. It's Ollie and somebody else, maybe Felix Georgie. And we walked into a cable park, into the shop. And we're just like kind of walking around, and the kid that works at the shop, he doesn't even know who we are. And he's like, "Hey, what's going on, guys?" We're like, "Oh yeah, what's up?" And we're like, we're just chilling. He's like, "Oh, y'all looking at boards?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're just checking out some boards or whatever." And Raph is there. And Raph like picks up his pro model board. He's like looking at it, and the kid goes, "Nah, man, they don't want that board. That's not a good cable board." And Raph's like, "Oh, what's better?" And he like literally the guy, I think it was like maybe like a Watson or like, just some like typical like donkey, wakeboard. And I was kind of just like giggling. And then the kid's just like showing us, this like non-flex board about how it's better for cable. And at one point I'm like, "Hey bro, do you know who that is?" He's like, no, who is it? I'm like, that's Raft Rome. That's his pro model board. And he goes, no way, bro. And I'm just like dying laughing. But that really is the truth, right? People go into a shop, and there's kids that work in the shop that have no idea what they're talking about. Yeah. And they're going to sell you on whatever board that Liquid Force, they give him a free board, and that kid for the rest of his life is going to be like, "Oh, dude, Liquid Force, best board ever."
On Liquid Force board.
Well, that is what they do, right?
Yeah.
You want the shop kids to be talking about your board, so you give them a free board, and then they'll only talk about you. And that was always a problem for Slingshot. It was like there was such a like miscommunication or like kind of like understanding of like what these boards were. Because you go to a wakeboard shop and it's like, "Oh yeah, you can't ride those Slingshot boards. They're too loose. They don't have any fins on the bottom. There's no channels." That was the weirdest thing. People literally like are like, "Oh, there's no channels." I'm like, what do you need a channel for? Like, I don't know. I think riding a board with no channels, no fins will make you the best rider ever because you actually learn how to use your edge, right? You learn how to like control the board and not have to be like locked in and being like, I can't ride with fins. Like fins freak me out. I'm like, get those fins off there because it's just like you're locked
Training wheels out of here.
Yeah, like I grew up surfing, so I feel like riding that board is probably the best. I had a story I definitely want to talk about because I just talked to Matt Manzari the other day about this. So back in the days, to give you another example of how I used to show up early all the time, I was filming Reed Hansen and Matt Mazzari. There was like a point in my life where I filmed Reed a lot. Like
They would be on time, right?
yeah.
Those two cats.
No. Just it gets better. It gets better, right? So at the time, I'm driving this like piece of shit van. This is like back in the day. I'm broke. I can't even afford gas, right? So like if I have to drive somewhere, I'm kind of like, I need to like get content. I need to get a video because I can't afford to go and like not get something.
Yeah.
I need to clip something. So I drive all the way out to Groveland. I go to Reed's house. This is back in the day before he had the System 2 and all that, and he was just doing jet ski lines. And I get there. It's like 6 in the morning. And I text Reed. I'm like, hey, I'm here. You know, I call them. They don't answer. So it's like 6:15. I'm like, where the fuck is he? So then finally he texts me and goes, hey, where are you at? And I'm like, I'm at your house. He goes, we stayed up really late last night. Can you just come back tomorrow? Can you go home? I'm like, Reed. I'm like, I'm here, bro. Like, I can't leave right now. He's like, oh, just come on. We were up till like 4 in the morning gator hunting. Him and Matt were out gator hunting till 4 in the morning, and then he's telling me to go home at 6. I'm like, no, bro. I'm like, come on. And finally they came out, but it was like pulling teeth. And I still remember like the fact, he's like, I'll give you $20. I'll pay for your gas to go home. I said, he's like, I'll pay for your gas to go. I'm like, no, I gotta film.
I'm here, dude. We're here.
Yeah, I'm literally here to film right now. But yeah, no, Reed Hansen, absolute living legend as well. One of my favorite people in the wakeboarding world all day. Just absolute character.
Yeah.
We won a
I was gonna bring that up.
yeah, the
2013
Trans World
2014 was it?
yeah video part series.
I remember what year it was one of those
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
But yeah. $5,000 you won for that.
Yeah. The funny part was Reed didn't want to give me the money.
Oh, you didn't split it 50-50?
We did split it, but it was like pulling teeth and nails. I'll say one thing about Reed. He little
He likes his money.
likes his money because he had a point where he was winning a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
Because every tournament he'd go to, every wake skating contest.
Well, I think he said that they would match for a while. Too,
Yeah.
Some of his sponsors.
Well, he did. Rockstar
is
was matching.
doing
Ronix was matching. He was making good money. And, he lived at home. He had a bunch of... I remember one time coming back from the Philippines, he had all this cash that he gave everybody, like, $9,000. And we were all going through customs, and everybody had, like, $9,000
because you
cash.
make over $10,000.
Yeah, because you can't go through. So we had, like, $40,000 cash. And he's just like, everybody hold this. And that was...
You got to charge a fee for that. Like, all right.
I think I might have
10%.
$20 out of there.
10%.
Yeah.
That's the cost of doing business here. All right. So we talked about the mugshot. I feel like I got to give you a chance to talk about getting arrested. Otherwise, people are going to be like, well, what was that?
Yeah. No, I mean, basically,
Because you retweeted it at some point.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not ashamed of it. I'm actually in a lawsuit right now with the state of Hawaii over it. But I basically got into like a road rage thing here in Orlando, right? Me and this guy, we like get into an argument. He's being, I don't know, he's just being a crazy person. He's like trying to cut me off. This whole road rage thing, and then we get to like a stoplight. And I'm an idiot, obviously. I've said that a million times, but I get out of the car.
Oh, that's the number one thing.
Yeah, don't ever get out of the car.
Yeah.
So I get out of the car, and I'm like, I put my hands up. I'm like, what? Like, you're sitting in your car yelling and screaming. I'm like, let's get out of your car and let's go. At this point, I had been living in Hawaii, and Hawaii's gnarly. Like, people in Hawaii fight all the time. It's like, you just like see someone that you don't like and you just get in a fight. I don't know why. It's just like, they just want to fight. So I was like in that mentality. I'm in Orlando. This guy is in this little tiny Tesla. And I get out of the car, and not that I'm like a big guy, but I get out, and obviously, I guess he's afraid. So no one believes me, but I swear to God, he hits me with his car, right? He tries to like take off, and like hits me, and it ends up like I end up like basically like denting the side of his front fender. I like dented it with like my body. I know it's hard to understand, but like I basically like he's trying to drive away, and as he's driving away, he like hits me, and then my body like dents his car. So then he like takes off, and then like we kind of like a little bit more happens, and then finally I'm like, all right, fuck it. I just end up leaving.
Yeah.
And I didn't call the cops. I'm like, I grew up in Bithlo, Christmas. So like we didn't call the cops. People got in fights. Something happened.
Go home, go your separate ways.
Yeah, no one calls the cops. Like it's just like it's not worth it. So I leave and went on with my day. I go back to Hawaii like 2 months later, and I'm driving to the gym to go work out, and a cop pulls me over. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. So he pulls me over, and he's like, oh, yeah, just stay here for a second. And then like 3 more cars come.
Oh, something's
And I'm like, oh, shit, this ain't good. I'm texting my buddy. I'm like, hey, something ain't right. Like, this ain't no normal traffic stop. So finally, they're like, get on the loudspeaker, got the guns out. I'm like, get out of the car, put your hands up. I'm like, what the fuck? I get out of the car, I'm like, what is happening? What is happening? I'm like, I know my registration might be expired, but like, what is happening right now? He's like, you're under arrest. You have a warrant for your arrest in Florida. So the guy basically he called the cops and told them that I jumped on the hood of his car, right? So then he files it as like he's the the victim.
Yeah.
And in the state of Florida, they have it's basically anything over $1,000 is called criminal mischief, and it's like a felony, which is, it's crazy to think, but like if you do $1,000 worth of damage to someone's property, they can charge you with criminal
probably
mischief.
Any dent in a car is gonna be
Well, exactly, and exactly. So that all happened. I got arrested. I got put in jail for 9 days in Hawaii, which
9 days.
Yeah, 9 days in a holding cell, my friend. Like a quarter of this room, just in there, no windows, no idea what time it is. I'm wearing the same clothes for 9 days. I'm freezing my ass off. I'm like it's gnarly. Every night, crackheads are just screaming and yelling because like I'm pretty much like in the police station, but I'm in my own little like cell, so I can hear like everybody else yelling and screaming in the other places. But like I'm just in this little room and spent 9 days. Like talk about you want to go through like some like an introspection of your life. Spend 9 days in like a little tiny room and just stare at the wall. Like you'll think about everything. What?
They give you a book or anything?
No, sir. I literally
Just
begged
doing
them.
push-ups.
I did push-ups. I basically figured out that if you walked, it was like 15 steps to like walk around the little cell in a circle. And I was like, okay, if I do, 100 of those, that'll be like 1,000 steps or whatever. And I would just like do little laps. I was going crazy. I was going absolute crazy.
Yeah,
man.
I bet.
It was wild. I lost like 10 pounds and it was wild. It was
Having a mugshot's kind of sick though.
Yeah, no, and
That's
then
pretty sick.
there's another mugshot out there too where I stole my own truck in Orlando. I got my truck towed, and then
Yeah.
I went to go pick it up, and the guy wasn't there. And then I was like, "Fuck this!" So then I just stole my own truck from the tow
Yeah,
yard.
2 mugshots.
Yeah, 2 mugshots.
Okay.
I'm a criminal. Watch out.
Criminal mischief. Watch out there. I mean, I think that's a good way to wrap it up. Is
Yeah.
there anything else you want to touch on here? Anything else you want to talk
Anything
about?
I want
or
to touch on? I'm trying to think
anybody
about
you
like
wanna
just
thank?
like anybody I want to shout out. Who's a good shout out? Oh yeah, I talked to Dano the Mano the other day. Dano's I think Dano's like he's a legend in the sport in the sense that like he's just the ultimate fan. Right? Dano just loves wakeboarding. He loves announcing it. He loves the people. I've had so many good times with Dano traveling the world. And that was always the thing about wakeboarding, right? Like, yeah, we didn't have a lot of money, right? We didn't get paid a lot. We didn't like have all the riches and all that, but like we lived life, right? Like we lived it like we were millionaires. We would travel the world, we'd go to these places, and like these rich guys would just be like, "Oh, I want to take you guys to dinner. I want to take you out on my boat." Like, it was so fun because everywhere you go, people just want to like hang out. And like you go to Germany and everyone wakeboarding is so big there, and you're going around with Nico, von Lerchenfeld, and he's introducing you to, "Oh, this is Patrick, and this is people from Slingshot," and it's like such a cool kind of thing. And I think that's the one. Like I tell people, I talked to a couple of people about it. They're like, maybe we didn't make a lot of money, maybe we didn't get all the accolades that we wanted, but like we had a really good time, and that's the one thing that I like always try to like stress to people is like try to find something in life that just like you have a good time doing, like maybe you don't make a lot of money doing it, maybe you're not, it's not the best thing in the world, but like as long as you have a good
if you're enjoying your days.
Yeah, if you're enjoying it, you wake up in the morning, you're excited. That's what it's all about. And I kind of regret obviously like kind of leaving wakeboarding in some ways, like in the sense of like maybe burning some of the bridges that I did.
You burn some bridges maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bridges in wakeboarding that I burned along the way, but just like I saw Sean Watson recently in Hawaii, and it's funny because like I'll see these guys that I haven't seen in years, and it's like instantly we're just right back, right? We're best friends, like we never left. And I feel like there's so many people like that where if I went on a trip today, if someone was like, "Hey, Ollie Jerome's like, let's go on a wakeboard trip," I'd be like, "Let's go," and we'd just be best friends like right away. So I look back, I think like even me like with Dylan Miller, like me and Dylan Miller were like really close and good friends at one point. I don't know why we had a little falling out, but like yeah, just kind of looking back at like all the people along the way that I kind of got to spend a lot of time with, and it was a pleasure, right? As much as like even like with McKee, like me and McKee had a lot of good times. I think at the end we spent too much time together. It was kind of like a husband-wife situation.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like there was just a weirdness there in that sense. So, looking back, do I regret anything? I don't really regret it. I think everything kind of happened.
Word, right?
Yeah, I think everything happened for a reason, and we all had a really good time. Everybody, I think, everybody that I worked with, everyone we filmed, like if we all look back, we're like, that was pretty fun.
Yeah. Did a lot. I mean, did a lot.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people that they live their whole lives, man, and they got nothing to look back on. Like there's people who they're gonna go to work, they're gonna work 9 to 5, they're gonna live their lives, they're gonna grow old, they're gonna die, and at least I can be like, dude, I lived. That 10 years of doing wakeboarding, that shit was fun.
Yeah.
Because we felt, like I said, like we felt like we were doing something. Like we're driving this industry. We're the people are watching to see what we're gonna do next.
Yeah.
And it was fun. It was a really just a good time. And some of the best people I've ever met in my entire life. I still talk to today. That came from wakeboarding, and I owe a lot. I have a lot of debt towards the wakeboarding, and again, like even Alliance, I think at the end of it all, it kind of fell the way it was. But they gave me the opportunity, right? They gave me the chance. They saw something in me that nobody else saw, and they were like, all right, Josh McWilliams. I don't know if he'll ever see this, but like he was a big filmer at Alliance, and in the beginning, he really mentored me. He tried to show me like, hey, like if you want to make videos better, like this is what you need to tell a story. It needs to flow. Every clip should be like flowing. Like I want to see it. If I film somebody do a trick from this angle, the next clip should be from like a different angle that like makes sense. So it shouldn't just be like every clip just from the side, Yeah. And I still apply that today when I film fishing or if I film my boat. Like everything that I learned wakeboarding, filming, and editing, like it all translates into everything else. And I think that's where I'm at. I'm successful and I am where I am today because of the wakeboarding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So big thanks to the wakeboarding industry. And I always have a little tear in my eye. Little tear in my eye.
All right. Well, thank you a ton for coming on.
Yeah,
that was a blast. That over 2 hours flew right by, and I'm not surprised.
I told my girlfriend it wouldn't be 2 hours, but I knew it would be.
Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks to your girlfriend for dropping you off.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you guys are interested in supporting the podcast. Join the Patreon. That helps a ton. And until next time.
What's next for you? How
more
big
pods.
Is this gonna get? More pods?
Yeah, more pods, dude. Going to events. We're going to events. Yeah,
Okay.
we got Bro Stock coming up.
Oh,
This might come out after Bro Stock. So
you gonna do like a live you can do a podcast at the Bro Stock?
I think we're gonna do a little recap at Bro Stock. It's
Yeah.
the same weekend as Munich Mash, so I
Yeah.
might get some, recap from Munich
I-
Mash
there's-
too.
Yeah, Bro Stock.
It's
Those are the
first
days.
time back after 10
Those
years.
are the days, boy.
So
I thought about
we'll
maybe
see.
going actually. When is it again?
Not this weekend, but next weekend.
I'll be in Hawaii.
End of
fishing,
June.
but-
Yeah, you're gonna be in Hawaii, but
But I would have.
Yeah,
I got some good memories in
the
Bro
plan is to bring it back every year. So
All right.
this
Stock.
year
Here it
goes
is.
well. I
Well, you
think it will.
better make it good this year. I'll come next year.
Oh, we're gonna get some content. We got some ideas. So yeah, thanks for coming on. Thanks
Yeah,
everyone
man.
tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.
Awesome.